Today's meeting of the Environmental Advisory Board is called to order on July 17th. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. The members of the Environmental Advisory Board were appointed by the City Council. We serve voluntarily. The board's objective is to provide citizen insight to the City Council and staff on environmental activities within and affecting the City of Clearwater. Agendas of today's meeting are on the wall to the entrance of the chamber. Please turn your cell phones off and any other electronic devices. To ensure a complete record of the board's actions, we ask that anyone speaking today please clearly state your name and spell it for the clerk if need be. Okay, will members of the board and staff please introduce yourselves? To my left.
My name is Jason Drizzt.
My name is Michael Rubino.
Jared Leone.
Kelly Dobbin.
Cassie Cordova.
All right, thank you very much. Our first order of business is to review our minutes from the previous meeting from May 15th. Was everyone able to take a look at the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, great, thank you. Any changes to the minutes, or do we accept them as? Okay, I'm looking for a motion to accept the minutes. Okay, a second?
Second.
All right, any opposed? Okay, all in favor? Minutes are approved. Good. We'll move on to citizens to be heard regarding items not on the agenda. Is there anyone here to speak to anything that's not on the agenda? If so, please come forward and state your name for the clerk. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on a subject that's not on today's agenda. There will be no dialogue between people speaking from the podium and board members until after you've completed your comments. Please come forward. Thanks. I am. Thank you, Brian.
Hi, Brian Beckman, live here in Clearwater. I'm the chair of the Sierra Club for the county, also a former board member of League of Women Voters leading their environmental committee, and also on the advisory board for the county for parks and conservation. And so I sent, I think all of you, an email here yesterday. Just wanted to highlight for some of you that are newer to the Environmental Advisory Board, these, I'll put it over here if it's okay, these goals that the city of Clearwater has that have come through this Environmental Advisory Board, that have been adopted by this board as well as the city council, brought forward by city staff, and very important goals. And like you've seen in some of the emails from Cassie, her team, and through probably other communications, the city's making great progress against a number of these goals. And as my email that I sent to you wanted to highlight some of those, and one of the recent email that was sent out was highlighting the energy efficiency program and that reduction, which aligns well with the very first one that you see there, the 2025 goal there. And then a number of others that I'm not going to go through here and repeat. But I wanted to reinforce that because making progress is always measured, hopefully, against these types of goals, measured in terms of dates, time frame. And what the city, I know, when they put together Greenprint 2.0, tried to really focus in on measurements, not just broad statements of, hey, we'd like to do a better job, et cetera, but actually putting time-phased and numerical goals. And the city's doing a great job against a number of those, especially related to energy. And so I wanted to highlight that to all of you that might not have been through that process personally, that the city has gone through over the last several years. And then the second and last thing that I'll mention is, or maybe ask a question of all of you here today, I did not see on the agenda any discussion related to artificial turf. So I know that's something that's being discussed by the city, might be getting presented at some point, and I would think you as an environmental advisory board, if there's any board that you would want to hear what might be discussed from what is being put in lawns going forward, it would be you from an environmental perspective. So I would hope that you would have that interest on that area. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. Yeah, to your first point, Greenpoint 2.0, I know we get updates on the status of that. Cassie, can you speak a little bit to our updates and when we will get the next one?
Yeah, so we have it as a potential topic for the November meeting, depending on the progress. But we are looking at Greenprint 3.0 and a potential partnership with USF to work on that.
Okay, so not just where we are with our current goals with Greenpoint 2.0, but looking at bigger picture updates to the overall plan too, so. Okay, great, and that would be in November?
Potentially.
Okay, all right, and then as far as fake grass, artificial turf goes, we're looking at possibly getting a presentation in July, now it's possibly September?
It is confirmed for September.
Okay, and I believe we were gonna have some brief discussion later on in our meeting about that overall, so, as well, so, thank you. Anyone else here to speak to anything that's not on the agenda? All right, hearing nothing, then we'll move on to our next item, 4.1, review Stevenson Creek projects, summary there.
So Angel is going to come up. He is our new Engineering Division Manager, Public Works, and he is overseeing a couple of different projects. He's going to give a brief overview. I did print the colored maps there. That is in regard to this discussion, so you'll have that. And then he'll give a little background information and answer any questions you may have.
All right, good afternoon.
Thank you very much.
My name is Angel Rivera. I'm the new Engineering Division Manager for the Public Works Department, City of Clearwater. Here to speak about the projects that we have ongoing for Stevenson or within Stevenson's Creek watershed. So just a quick overview. The watershed, the Stevenson's Creek watershed covers 6,286 acres, of which 65% are within the city of Clearwater. The city has a watershed management plan to provide an integrated environmental management approach. And that management plan has several recommendations. The first that we're going to discuss is what we call the Lower Spring Branch Project. This project is a part of a cooperative funding agreement between the Southwest Florida Water Management District, also known as SWIFMUD, with the city and Pinellas County to improve the Lower Spring Branch. The Lower Spring Branch is a tributary in the Stevenson Creek watershed located within the city of Clearwater. The project will replace existing bridges along Springtime Avenue, over Brook Drive, and along over Douglas Avenue. The goal of this project is to address flood protection and to replace deteriorated bridges. The other project that we are working on was not mentioned within or was not addressed within the management plan, and it is a section of Stevenson's Creek where we're going to stabilize the embankment. That project is under review, and it is to provide stabilization for the embankment and the channel from Bellevue Boulevard to Lakeview Road, about 400 linear feet of creek. This project does not include any dredging or is not recommended to be dredged. This project will address the typical creek, channel, ditches, embankment issues, mostly erosion due to failing or non-existing embankment protection. Any questions?
Thank you very much for coming out, and thank you for the presentation. In full disclosure, I have heard about some of the Lower Spring Branch project because of my involvement with the Spring Branch Neighborhood Association and my work in my neighborhood association, which is part of the Stevenson Creek Management Watershed area. I appreciate the diagrams and the maps. I'll open up discussion to anyone on the dais, if anyone has any questions about these or any other projects.
Sure. What type of bank stabilization are you guys doing at the Stevenson Creek area?
All right, so for that particular project, well, the second project, the stabilization, we have several options. We haven't gone to design yet. So typical options that we're analyzing with our maintenance department is basically whether they prefer or is easier to maintain either gabions or some other vertical wall or some kind of a slope protection. So we're looking at those also from an economic standpoint.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the board? Do you have timeframes for both of these projects, when they're going to start and when they will end?
Okay, so the Lower Spring Branch project right now is in the process of finalizing the design, which also includes acquiring all the necessary easements for construction. And the construction is intended to start next year, hopefully sometime around summer. And based on the grant that we receive, no matter what, overall, we have 5 years to complete the project from now until it's fully built.
Okay, and then the success of this project will be measured by removing a number of homes from the floodplain?
That is correct.
How many homes?
I believe it's 19 homes altogether, maybe 20. We're actually reviewing that as well right now as we speak. And we are also replacing bridges that are that are failing or very deteriorated. So that will also help with the emergency service response if we don't have to close out the bridge at some point.
Yeah, improved infrastructure is a plus. All right, great. And then the other project, the stabilization project, what's the time frame for that?
Okay, so for that one, we're analyzing right now. I personally walked part of the project last week. The due process is an RFQ, a request for qualifications for the design process. And then after that, once we select the firm, we go into design and construction. That project, we're analyzing the full scope. So at this point, we're just still determining what will be the time frame for the project.
Okay.
I have a question. What, the 19 homes that will be replaced, are they for the bridges?
Not replaced. Once
sorry.
you replace the bridge, you'll have a bigger area under the bridge, so the water levels will actually drop. So then the floodplain would actually, for the entire creek, will drop. And then the houses that are within existing floodplain now will be above. So the water within the creek will lower.
Yeah, but the homes are going to be removed.
No.
No,
Oh.
removed
When we
from
say
the,
remove, it's removed from the floodplain, so the actual from the map, so it's
Okay,
no longer.
all right. It's like,
They won't be in the flood zone anymore.
I got it, okay.
Sorry.
All right. And then you said Stevenson Creek has a watershed management plan.
Correct.
When was that plan developed? Is it recent
Actually,
or-
that plan is from 2001.
Okay.
And we're looking at updating it sometime in the near future.
Is that working with the county to update it, or just through the city doing an update?
Actually, that is with Swiftmud and the county. Yes.
Okay. Okay, great. Any other comments from the board or questions? Are there any comments from the audience? Please step to the podium and state your name for the clerk. You'll have 3 minutes to speak on this item. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Alexandra Nixon. I'm the president of the Stevenson Creek Advocacy Group, which is a recently founded nonprofit. I had actually prepared a presentation not knowing exactly what the items on the agenda were, which is kind of geared at giving you a better overview of Stevenson Creek. I had not understood that it was a summary of the projects. And amongst those projects, I didn't hear anything about the feasibility study that's currently carried out by Marine and Aviation, Michael McDonald. And I understand Stevenson Creek is also part of the coastal and tidal management study, which I believe might be under way with Ms. Kessler or somebody like that in the city. So I was a little surprised not to hear all of these projects mentioned. So I don't have a lot of time, unfortunately. I just want to point out that in reviewing these projects, please remember that Stevenson Creek has a central role in Clearwater. It's a central landmark and one of our major natural resources and natural habitats, so it's a wildlife haven. It's essential, of course, to stormwater and tidal management, as you've known. It constitutes of impaired waters. It's a protected area, and it is now a haven to manatees, so we're looking to make it a manatee area. Over $100 million were spent over the years to rehabilitate this creek, and it is fundamental to the social and cultural role it has that kind of role in our city's history. So it's home to thousands of mangroves, and this is, I think, the key element of this creek. Mangroves have developed extremely well there and thrived since 2014 when the dredging project was finished. And in all of the projects that might come up in front of you, one of them is a multi-boat dock application that did not come up in front of you, but that is very contentious at this time with residents. It's important to keep in mind that this creek was so severely impaired 10 years ago that we need new data to find out what condition it is in today, because now we see dolphins, we see manatees. Manatees are still there even though their migration season is over. There's mullet, fish are returning. The mangroves are thriving in most places, including in the estuary, and mangroves are vital to fish breeding, and these waters in the 1970s were so full of fish and crab and shellfish that there were actually small-scale fisheries thriving off of that water. The families in North Greenwood would go fish there. Clearwater children played there. And we are really eager at Stevenson Creek Advocacy Group to bring back the importance of the role of this creek. And please consider these projects very carefully in terms of their impact on the environment. And finally, we'd like to ask if you can launch any type of environmental study for current data on the creek and the wildlife that's there and thriving now. That would be really wonderful because we don't have current data.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
Alex.
very much for listening to me.
Okay, so to Alex's point, and
I
yeah.
have a question.
yeah, certainly.
Yeah.
Alex?
Alex,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
you said you had a presentation. Would you be willing to share your email so I could email you and get a copy of that? so I could see it?
Absolutely. It's a presentation a little bit on the history of the creek, the work that was done on it. It's pretty thorough. I think I would love to share it with you, really. So the email is Stevenson Advocates.
Would you be able to send it to Cassie, and Cassie can send it to all of us?
Absolutely. I think,
Perfect.
yes, we have exchanged by email, so I'll follow up
And
and
then,
do that.
To some of Alex's points, she had mentioned a feasibility study and coastal management study. We happen to have Mr.
Both of the
McDonald and
people
Ms.
you
Kessler
mentioned.
here, and we have quite a few other people who might be able to answer just briefly some about these, where these, I guess, studies or projects or initiatives are, and yeah, could you answer or speak to those just briefly? I appreciate it. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Board. Mike McDonald, Marine and Aviation Director. So we put together a feasibility study. We hired an engineering firm to come in and do this study for us. And what we're looking at is the feasibility of putting in permitted zones for either slow speed, minimum wake, or no wake zones. So what they do is they go in and they'll do a study to see if we should approach the state to get a permit, either through boater safety or through environmental. And part of the study was a shoreline stability test between Fort Harrison and Betty Lane. And the update on this is the shoreline assessment has been completed, the field work was completed. Boat wake erosion is minimal, working up figures on this as we speak. They invest in alternate research. They're well underway and have uncovered a fair amount of historical information on the site, occasionally uncovering a new piece to run down, but beginning to put a lid on it. They're just starting to put the report together, and they're still on target to have a draft report by the end of August.
Okay, so this might be something that we could hear later in the year in September or November, I guess, at one of the future meetings. Thank you very much for giving us a little bit
You're
of an
welcome.
update on that. So this was something that was conducted just recently. Was it brought up I'm sorry, I apologize. Was staff initiated or resident initiated? Why did you guys
Well,
start
it was a few years ago, it was brought to our attention. There's manatees in there.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
documented manatees in there, as you well know. So we were tasked with putting in a slow speed minimum wake with existing regulations, which is 300 feet on each side of the bridge. So
Yeah.
we did that, and then we're still having, documented videos and everything of people still speeding through the creek, of
So this
manatees
would
nursing their
expand
young.
those existing.
Then that's what we're trying to do, is
Okay.
we're looking at trying to expand it. Getting these permits, they're not easy to get, and you have to have a lot of documentation, especially if you're wanting to do it environmentally. You pretty much have to get your documentation, and then the state will look at their documentation and go that route. So it's a tough task to do, but it's something that we're looking at doing.
Okay, sounds like you have to get your manatees in a row. right?
A question, maybe this is known, but what is the depth of the creek right now? Do you know?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, and
no,
I'm
I
just
don't.
wondering what it would be after they drop it as well.
I don't know that they're doing anything to drop
For the 19
That's,
houses?
oh, that's a different project. That would, that's just to increase capacity along that part of the creek. This is for a different part of the
Yeah.
creek. This is for part of the creek near, Fort Harrison and Sunset Point Road.
Yeah.
And
Betty
up
Lane,
toward
yeah.
to Betty Lane.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
This is just to implement like a slow-speed minimum wake for that entire
The
area.
kind of wider
Oh, okay.
space of the creek, yeah.
Okay.
For the entire, you're talking about at the mouth, right?
Right,
The mouth of the
right.
creek, and then, and up to how far?
I think Betty Lane.
To Betty Lane? So, shoreline erosion from boats is one.
Minimal.
Minimal.
Yep.
So that's one measurement. What were the other measurements? I didn't really,
They'll look at boater safety, how the people in the boats are behaving on the water, and look at the safety aspect of that. And then also, they'll look at environmentally, manatees, seagrass, things like that, to see if we could approach the state using that
Okay.
to try to get it. So,
And we'll get a
So-
more detailed report. later.
yeah, they'll give us the best course or no course at all. You have no course to make this any kind of permit, slow-speed minimum wake. So that's what we've asked them to do. So they'll give us how we should proceed with making this a permit zone, if any.
Okay, very well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And then there was a coastal management study as well. Was that something that you're working on, Ms. Kessler? Can you speak to that briefly? Thank you very much.
Sarah Kessler, Environmental Division of Public Works. I am not working on a coastal study.
Okay, is there someone else who is,
So,
or another
No,
organization?
not right now. We're not working on
Okay.
it. Like, we have plans to, it's, in the CIP that we're going to be working on that stuff. Many, many years ago, we did a Clearwater Harbor, St. Joseph Sound Comprehensive Water Management, something or other, I'm not sure the exact term of it, with the county. And the county is currently working on that. So that will just be looking at Clearwater Harbor and St. Joseph Sound. It won't be going into Stevenson Creek, but it will be looking at the discharge from the creek as it goes into Clearwater Harbor. And so that's something that will be included in part of that. But, yeah, they're, I don't know, they started that project like a year ago. So, I don't know, probably in another year, maybe 6 months, we'll have a draft of that. I haven't heard any progress on it. So I don't know if it was delayed for whatever reason, but,
Okay, very well.
the county is taking the lead on that one.
All right. Yeah, historically, this board has asked about Stevenson Creek. I know it's a point of interest for myself because I live near there, but it does have impact for the greater environment, the greater part of the community as well, and so it's good to hear these updates. One other thing I will say that I've heard at a number of meetings for quite a while is that the Marshall Street plant will be decommissioned at some point in the future because it has to be, and discharging from it into Stevenson Creek is another longer-term, larger project that will likely improve the water quality in that area without water being discharged there from that. So are there any other comments from the board? Any other comments from the audience? All right, we'll move on to our next item then. Item 4.2, review presentation on the beach marina project.
Good afternoon, Board. Mike McDonald, Marine and Aviation Director.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Do I need to do something? just click, okay. I'm here to give you guys a presentation on the beach marina. This past Monday, it was approved by council, so we're moving forward with it. So the Clearwater Beach Marina has been in operation since the 1940s. It's been expanded that time up to about 1965 to how it essentially looks today. Over the past 58 years, 59 years, the marina has been repaired and rehabilitated, but never been fully replaced. The existing marina offers slips for a variety of boating activities, including recreational leases, commercial leases, and transient boaters from all over the world. The Clearwater Beach is home to the finest fishing charters, sightseeing tours, and water sports activities. The property also offers great amenities, including retail outlet, real estate, barbershop, a mini mart, 4 popular restaurants, and a marina-focused amenities such as fueling, restrooms, showers, and laundry facilities. The Clearwater Beach Marina has 165 total recreational, commercial, and transient slips. 51 commercial businesses operate out of 58 commercial slips at the marina. Commercial operators range from fishing charters, dinner cruises, sailing, dolphin tours, jet skiing, parasailing, and family-oriented cruises like Nemo's Pirate Ship and Shark Teeth. Weather permitting, these operations run 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Self-service fuel dock with 20,000-gallon diesel tank and 10,000-gallon gasoline tanks provide fuel to all these boats and everybody else out on the water. The current condition of the marina, as you can see, this is taken along Coronado, if you're standing by the hotel looking north. So we wanted to clean up a lot of this congestion along the sidewalk, and so we've accomplished that. And I'll show you later what that's going to look like. This is underneath underneath one of the docks. You can see the fuel line here. These appear to be telephone lines all bundled up. Then under here you have the fuel lines, you have fire lines, you have domestic water, you have sewer, you have electric. Down here you can see some sprawling on one of the support piers, cement support piers. This is the seawall. You can see where the sidewalk's fallen in from the seawall. What makes us believe that there's some prop dredging going on under there, and we're losing dirt. Here you can see more sprawling on these cement piers. You can see the rust marks on here, so it's gotten into the structure of it. Oysters, this is one of the things that we came up with to try to help the support beam with these metal brackets here. And you can see pilings are split. So what is this going to accomplish? So we're going to replace and modernize the marina utilities. We're going to optimize marina slip mix and layout. We're going to maximize the city-owned submerged lands but maintain existing slip count and balance. We're going to provide upland storage and ticket sales opportunities. We're going to reduce the congestion along Coronado Avenue, and we're going to activate Marina Walk. We're going to maintain the commercial operations during construction, and we're going to provide 2 boat slips for the Clearwater Ferry. And so this is what this is going to look like. So the general layout's the same for the commercial fleet. You can see them here. What we're doing is in this area here, this is going to be our fishing village. So all our fishing charters are going to be in this area, and then all the tour boats are going to be all along here. Right in this area is going to be what we're calling Marina Walk. So all the structures that are currently over the water, they're not permissible anymore. They're not up to code. So those are all going to be demolished, and we're going to provide kiosks along this area, and it's going to be a plaza with seating and shade structures, and we're going to lease out these facilities to the different tour operators so they can do their sales, sell their T-shirts, and conduct their business. Down here is going to be 2 ferry slips. Along here is going to be for our larger vessels that come in, they're transients that come in. They'll stay, a week up to a month. It's kind of like a hotel, but you bring the room with you. So they lease that space. These are going to be the public day docks. They're free to people to come. They can come here. They can go to the restaurants. They can go to the beach. They can moor here for free. and this is going to be the fuel dock, and then this, the 3 trees coming off are going to be for our recreational tenants. So the recreational slip mix aligns with the market study results. What we come to find out is, the average boat's about 45 foot, and the width of them has increased drastically, and plus with the electric, everybody has air conditioners, refrigerators, TVs, computers, radios. When this marina was designed, they didn't have that stuff. So the commercial slip mix increased to accommodate the future market. The commercial boat slips remain along the perimeter of the marina. Kiosks located upland near primary dock entrances. Fish cleaning stations and limited storage options to be provided on docks and adjacent to the marina. Creation of marina walk with wayfinding, art, shade, and seating to increase pedestrian flow to east end of the marina. So looking at the statistics from the economic impact, we found that 635,000 unique visitors to the Clearwater Beach area with over 500 million in direct expenditures, 1 billion in total economic impact for the area, and 8.9 million in resort tax. 90% of the travelers were on vacation. They stayed an average of 5.6 days. 98.3 said they were satisfied with their stay, and over 95% said that they plan on returning to the area. So the current project status, we did the market study, the commercial tenant outreach, the marina master plan development, done the field work, the initial environmental permitting phase, grant application, the CMAR selection, the project design, the federal channel deauthorization, and the bid submittals and awarding. We're going to complete the permit process. GMP was approved on Monday. So phase 1 of construction is going to start in October. That'll be completed in October of 25, with phase 2 starting in October of 25, being completed by late spring of 26. Project risk, there's going to be some parking reduction with the addition of the marina walk. Dredge disposal is going to be an issue while we're doing that. It's not going to be the whole time that we're doing that, but part of this is a dredge project, so we're going to have to dewater it. And then, of course, we've had all sorts of inflation and supply chain issues and escalating costs. Here's some of the renderings. Here's going to be what Marina Walk's going to look like. There's going to be a boardwalk so people can walk both sides of it with the shade structures and the seating. Here's just some more renderings of some art that, is possible down in Fishing Village. And here's some of the shade structure, some of the seating, what that could look like, some of the preliminary sketches of what the kiosk could look like. And that ends my presentation. Do y'all have any questions?
Thank you very much. I'll
We
open
have a
up the
question.
board. Yeah, please.
Is all the space already delineated, or is there any possibility that we could have some area for maybe some education and conservation about the ocean?
Yeah, that's a good point. So with some of the grant funding that we're getting, we're going to have educational signs, and we want to have educational signs, just like we do down at the Harbor Marina. Down there we have, manatee signs, and there's big displays, and they talk about that. So yeah, there will be areas for that.
Have you been to that center at the St. Pete Pier?
I have not.
Oh my gosh, it's incredible. I would love to have something like that that teaches children and, well, actually people in general,
Yeah.
all about the ocean and recycling and conservation.
I believe that's done by Tampa Bay Watch.
Yeah.
It might be a good partner for that
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
Any other questions?
You mentioned dredge material might be an issue. What is the plan? What are you going to do with the dredge material?
So we're going to have to dewater it on location, and so we'll put it in the parking lot, dewater it, and then it'll be taken off-site, disposed of.
And you also mentioned that you had the sinking of the sidewalk. You thought it might be some prop
Dredging, yeah.
What's the plan for future prevention of that?
So part of this project's going to be a seawall. It's going to be raised to, I think it's going to be over the code minimum. And so we're going to rebuild the seawall.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
all of that. Okay. And has there been any, like, testing for any sort of pollutants within that dredge material, sediment testing?
Yeah, we did the core samples, and we've already done the testing for that. So that's how we have the plan that we have to dewater on site and take it off to dispose of it. Yep.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from?
Oh, sorry, I did one more.
yeah,
Sorry.
certainly.
I know it's gonna be, I didn't see the numbers in there. How many slips are we expanding to?
Well, it's gonna be the same number of slips, they're just wider and bigger.
Gotcha.
So, yeah.
Okay. Perfect, thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Normally with new construction, I bring up an issue of energy efficiencies or potential for like clean energy sources like solar.
Yeah, so a part of this project is we're looking at expanding for the use of electric boats.
Right.
So we have the conduit, we have everything in place to upgrade to that.
Okay.
When that need arises. And there's also some partners that we've reached out to that will do that for us. And, you know, they reap the benefits of it. The cost of everything, they'll pay for it, but essentially they get the charge from the.
And those partners, would that be Duke or?
No, I forget the name of the company. I don't have it
Okay.
on the top of my head. but
All right.
Yeah,
So the infrastructure will be there
yes,
for
for
the commercial
expanding into it. Yep,
and the recreational docks?
yep.
Okay.
Well, to clarify that the chargers themselves won't be there, but you'll have it EV ready.
Correct, yeah, it'll be ready.
I'm sorry.
It'll be EV ready.
It'll be EV ready. The conduit will be laid, but we won't actually have the chargers put in.
There won't actually be a charging station?
No.
No, the chargers will not be put in,
Okay, but the
but the
infrastructure will be
infrastructure
there?
will be there, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, I was curious, and Glennie kind of asked briefly about it. Solar, were there any opportunities for solar or shaded parking spaces over the parking? I know John Thomas would, I know, always ask about that. And
Yeah.
this was an opportunity here for,
This project, we're not doing anything with the parking. So with the shade structures, they're fabric, so they're not able to support the solar.
Yep.
right, those are shade structures for the
For people,
other
yeah.
part, yeah. But in the parking lot, there's no shade structures.
No,
Right, and you wouldn't use nylon or canvas shade structures, you'd use metal ones, or like, there are other places that have shade structures over parking lots, and then on top of
Airports are
that,
big
they
on
would
that,
have solar, and that's what I'm asking about more specifically.
yeah, no, we're not doing anything as part of this project to the parking lot.
Was that considered, or just not something that was,
It's something that's not budgeted.
Yeah, we put it in there, but I think it was, Melody and I suggested it when it went through review, but I think the value engineering didn't allow for that. It's already over budget.
Yeah, there is a potential for a parking garage that.
a
Public
future
Works is
parking
working on,
garage?
yeah.
In that same space? So
Yeah.
what is the reduction in spaces? We're going from how many spaces there to how many?
I want to say it was 338 to 312?
Okay, so 20 some odd,
Yeah,
26?
28
or
spaces is
so,
what we're
20,
losing.
Almost 30 spaces. What are we doing to, I guess, if we're reducing parking there, how are we making it more accessible for everyone to be able to get there? Putting two spaces for the ferry, are we gonna be able to get free or reduced rates for residents to use the ferry to get out to those two new spaces that are being put out there? Or something to,
Well,
again, alleviate that?
Currently, there are free lots that people can use, and then they can purchase a ticket on the ferry and go from the harbor
Sure.
near the free lot over to the beach. So,
But there won't be anything
Whether
to
the-
expand access to use the ferry to
we're always looking to
Yeah,
grow the
yeah,
ferry
yeah,
and
sure.
the ridership, so.
Okay.
So the EV charging stations, we're talking they're in were we talking about the parking lot? The EV
It's
charging?
for the
No,
boats.
The boats, for
For
e-boats.
the boats?
Yeah.
Are there any plans for EV charging stations in the parking lot, in the parking?
That's really out of my purview. Public Works is over parking, so
Okay.
those questions would be best
All
pushed to
right.
them.
Yes, no?
Any plans for that?
So I would just offer that if the parking
Thank you.
garage moves forward, we would probably consider both options for being able to look at putting EV chargers in that, as well as we'd probably take a look at if solar is an option as we get up on the roof, whether it goes with a restaurant or something. So those will all be good. You know, if there's feedback of, hey, you may want to consider some of that, now's probably a good time because we're literally in the concept development stage for some of that.
But there are 300 parking spaces that we're building right now, but there's no EV
They're not
charging.
building, they're already there.
Okay, so there's no,
Yeah,
oh, we're just
this-
taking a part of it,
Yeah,
but we're not
losing that
changing
plan.
what's there.
Correct.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
got it.
And the possible new parking structure is in the initial design or idea phase now, is that what you're
It's
saying?
in the concept phase, so it's
Okay.
not even on our strategic plan yet, so it may go on the strategic plan next year.
Okay.
So it's just being batted around right now, so it's in the concept development for a pitch.
And is there, the increase in parking spaces, is that a known number, or is that not really? It would
Not-
still be the same number or more? Okay.
Oh, no, it'll be substantially more.
Okay.
There's a high demand for beach parking, and
yes.
we want to also address some of the traffic flows coming and going. So there's a number of considerations that we'd kind of like to take into that. If we can keep some of that other traffic from having to go farther into the beach, we'd like to do that. Get them right off the bridge into a parking garage. You know, if there's desire to make it more aesthetic, if there's EV chargers, other things that we can put into some of that.
And you have a site location in mind for it?
It
I
would
mean,
be-
It's gonna be the parking.
Yeah, it'll be,
it would be the existing parking lot.
yeah.
Ah, okay.
Okay, so yeah, I think EV chargers and solar would be our consideration for that
Yes.
moving forward, for sure.
Yes.
If those things are being discussed at this point,
It's
yeah.
being discussed
Yeah.
in this area right here, which is on the,
On the streets?
Okay.
which is on the east end.
Okay.
So all of those design and bids and all that, that gets routed through to Melody and I, and we always put EV chargers and solar on all of them. So I guarantee you, we will be putting that recommendation.
Very well. Thank you very much, Marcus. I had
Yeah.
a couple of other quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the project, I know the meeting Monday, they gave the funding. When is this starting and how long is this gonna take?
It's already started right now. Like I
Okay.
said, we're in final review. We've got all the bids and we've awarded, we're in the process of awarding. Next, we order material starts showing up, and we start construction at the end of October.
Okay, so before the end of the year, substantially
Oh,
before the
yeah.
end of the year.
Yeah.
Okay, and then it'll be about how long?
It'll be about 2 years.
2 years, okay.
So the first phase, all the commercial tenants are gonna move to where the fuel dock is now, on the east side of the marina, and they'll start with the west side of the marina. A year from when that's done in a year, then they'll switch.
Okay,
So, commercial will stay operational throughout the construction of the marina.
all right.
Not the recreational then?
The recreational's they're already out. I have some transients in now, but the recreationals, they've already found new homes. Some of them down at the harbor marina, so.
Okay.
When you mentioned environmental permitting, was an environmental impact study done or anything studying seagrass? I know, again, that's
Yeah.
another one, John Thomas, I know he would
Yeah,
want to know
that-
about the seagrass.
That's a part of all these projects.
Okay.
So I don't have any of that information in front of me, but yeah, they do the environmental impact studies on all of it.
Would you
And
be
we
able
also
to?
have to do the environmental permitting, so.
Yeah, so what does that consist of, the environmental permitting?
I don't want to misspeak, so I can share that information with
That would be great,
Cassie.
yeah, and you can
have her
share
get
it with
that
us,
to you.
Cassie? Perfect.
I'll send you over what the permit looks like.
Okay, yeah, I guess, just curious what it entails, if, you know, what it looks like as far as wildlife, sea life.
Yeah.
and, all that. And then, you mentioned the seawall will be taller than what the standard is. How tall will it be?
Do you know that off the 5 feet?
5 feet.
5 feet.
So where it is currently, it'll be 5 feet higher than that?
No, it's about 18 inches higher than what it is right now.
Okay.
18 to 22 inches.
Oh, okay, so, okay, 1.5 feet, almost 2 feet
Yep.
higher than what it currently is.
Correct.
Okay, and, I guess during construction, will that impact traffic in terms of rerouting it at all or anything?
So on the, on 60, on the other side of the little bridge, there's going to be about 200 spaces for marina employees and also the construction employees to park. I would venture to say about 150 spaces are going to be impacted.
Okay, and those spaces are moved to, over where you said to?
Correct.
Okay,
So the first phase that'll be over by Krabby Bill's will be the laydown area, and a good portion of the parking lot will be open to the public. And then when they switch, you know, the laydown area will be on that west side, which is impact probably a couple more spaces than what's going to be impacted during the phase 1 of construction.
and the construction workers will be parking off on the
Correct.
Causeway area?
Correct. We got a permit with FDOT for them to park on 60.
Okay, I
think we
believe
have
in
a
the,
comment.
oh, sorry, yeah, Marcus?
Just one other piece, all the dredging trucks are going through, we are.
Oh, you have to,
Yeah.
Yes, sorry. One just consideration from the traffic standpoint we are looking at is all those dredging trucks coming in and out. We are trying to look at if we can avoid running those through the roundabout. So that's one of the pieces. We recognize that cycle. We'd like to keep that out of that roundabout area. So we're looking at that now.
I know in the past on large construction projects, some deal was made with the ferry to have people park on the mainland and then kind of ferry over. Is that in consideration as well to kind of reduce the parking?
Yes,
need?
the ferry is looking at partnering up with some of the hotels out on the
Okay.
beach.
All right. Yeah, or the construction crews to,
And,
like I said.
and then we're also working with Jolly Trolley to see.
Okay. Okay, very well. Any other questions from the board?
Yeah, quick question about fuel storage.
Mhm.
Where is that going to be, planned to be replaced? with
No.
everything? No?
No, the underground fuel tanks will stay.
When were
in
those,
place.
do you have any idea when those were installed?
Oh, I want to say 2001. Don't
Okay.
hold me to it.
So relatively recently.
So not 1950, whatever.
Yeah, 19.
I know,
That's what
I know they were replaced sometime around 2000,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, what is the life cycle on those tanks? Because I believe like gas tanks in the ground are 25 to 50 years or so,
Yeah,
right?
well, these are the double-walled poly,
Okay.
Yeah.
they're not the old steel tanks.
I was worried about saltwater intrusion.
Yeah, yeah.
Affecting the stability of it.
Certainly, certainly. All right, any other questions or comments from the board? Any from the audience? Please come forward, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi again, Brian Beckman. I had a list here, and you covered just about all of them, from the seawall to solar to EV charging, parking garage, et cetera. So thank you for asking those questions, and thank you for all those answers. The only one that I didn't hear, and Glenna, I'm gonna have to say I'm disappointed that you didn't bring this up, because you are a big bike rider. So I ride my bike from my home, I live on Sankey, there over the bridges. And the most difficult part of my ride is that area that was on the left side of the picture. So I was trying to picture in my mind about whether that was going to be improved at all. So when I go through that area, I mean, you can't easily ride your bike along the beach area from Sankey Bridge. You stay along the, whatever that road is that gets you to the marina, and then you have to get off your bike because it is a very cramped around and it's too dangerous to be out there on the road. So I'm curious on whether there's going to be any widening there so that people that are riding a bike might be able to have at least a little bit easier time getting through.
Okay.
Glenna?
You live closer than I do,
Thank-
that's my
Thank you, Brian.
excuse.
Yeah.
I ride to the top
Can you
of the
speak to
bridge.
accommodating bicyclists?
For sure. So, so along Coronado here, right now we have a bunch of kiosks and it's crowded, and he's absolutely right. So one goal of this was to try to push everybody or at least moving along Coronado, and that's why we put all the kiosks right here to try to free up Coronado. The road it's not going to be any wider, or the sidewalk's not. You'd have to do road construction and change that intersection. So that's not going to be a part of this project. So it's still going to be narrow through here and then kind of widen out as you go. But there is going to be a railing that runs along the seawall here to separate the docks from that sidewalk that he's talking about. So that was our goal, and that's the intent of it, is to push the people so they're not all queuing off of Coronado. It's not going to be any wider, but hopefully less congested with pedestrians.
On the sidewalk?
On the sidewalk, yes.
So the sidewalk itself will still be the same?
Still going to be the same walk, just hopefully not packed with pedestrians.
Yeah, because, the
Queuing
kiosks,
up.
yeah.
So they're going to be queuing up right along here.
That should help.
Yeah, that's our goal.
But you said it will be separated by a bar?
Yeah, there will be a wrought iron
Railing.
fence that runs along the seawall here that'll separate the sidewalk from the docks itself.
Okay, so, and that width will be the same width as the sidewalk?
Yeah, the sidewalk's not
Currently,
going to change.
okay. All right.
So,
It is difficult to ride there. I've been there, particularly at night when there are less people. But it's still really not bike-friendly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But this area will be closed during the first phase of construction, at least good portions of it, but after construction. But this loop that goes around Krabby Bill's here and then it follows 60 out, that'll remain open.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any other comments from the audience, questions? All right, we'll move on to our next item, 4.3, presentation about the city's improved community rating system score.
Alrighty then. Great to see some of you again. Those of you that don't know me, my name is Sarah Kessler. I am an environmental specialist in our environmental division of Public Works. So a little bit of background about me. I've been with the city for over 17 years. Through all those years, I've been able to make relationships that allow me to coordinate with a lot of different departments and make connections outside of the city that are essential for the success of our CRS program. So that's how I ended up being in charge of this one. So here is just my little agenda of what I'm going to talk about. Going to go through some definitions of FEMA, the NFIP, CRS, and then I'm going to talk about our Clearwater program. Okay, so sure you all have heard of FEMA, Federal Emergency Management Agency. So it's under the Department of Homeland Security, and it has a mission to help people before, during, and after disasters. So FEMA was officially created in 1979 through an executive order by Jimmy Carter, but the actual actions of FEMA occurred way before that, and they can be traced back to 1803. The government was already helping people with disaster stuff. So in 1988, with the Stafford Act, that provided a much more clear direction and statutory framework of how FEMA works. So under FEMA, we have the National Flood Insurance Program, or the NFIP. And so the NFIP is managed by FEMA and is delivered to the public by a network of more than 50 insurance companies. So floods can happen anywhere, and just 1 inch of flood water can cause up to $25,000 of damage in a structure. And most homeowners do not know, well, I feel like in Florida it's a little bit different, but overall, most homeowners do not know that your homeowner insurance does not cover flood damage. And so that is one of the goals of this program. So your flood insurance can cover the structure and the contents, or both. Like, if you're a renter, you can get flood insurance for just the contents and things like that. So the NFIP provides flood insurance to property owners, renters, businesses, and having that coverage helps recover faster once the flood waters recede. So the NFIP works with communities to ensure that they adopt and enforce required floodplain management regulations that help mitigate those flood losses. Flood insurance is available to anyone living within one of the 23,000 NFIP communities. So homes and businesses in high-risk flood areas with mortgages backed by with the government-backed lenders are required to have flood insurance. So then we get to the community rating system. So NFIP has the community rating system, or CRS, and that was implemented in 1990. And it's a voluntary program that recognizes and encourages communities to exceed the minimum requirements of the NFIP. So a community that is, any community fully compliant with the NFIP floodplain management requirements can apply to the community rating system and join the CRS program. Nationwide, there's about 1,500 communities that participate in CRS. So under CRS, flood insurance premium rates are discounted to reward the community for actions under these three goals of the CRS program. So it's to reduce and avoid flood damage to an insurable property, to strengthen and support the insurance aspect of the NFIP, and to foster comprehensive floodplain management. So 100 and, oh, no, sorry, jump ahead. There we go. Oh my gosh, wait. This is old. This is my old one. This isn't my new one.
This is what you gave me?
No, Melody had the new one. Oh, darn it. Okay, so this is,
Do you want to get it?
I have other stuff in there.
We can do it.
So, okay, just, wait,
No pressure.
pause.
All right.
So,
I
'cause
So we're doing
I
even
have-
better than this.
I
yeah.
didn't know it was different.
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
different. I had time to update it, so I updated. Yeah,
Well-
sorry.
Just briefly while we're waiting, projects like the Lower Spring Branch Improvement Project would
I
help.
have that in my new
Oh,
notes.
okay, great.
Like, it's not in the old version, but it's in the new version because I knew On Hill was gonna talk about Spring Branch. So I actually have it. Yeah, there we go.
All right. And we're back.
We're back, okay. Okay, thank you, okay. So then, all right, here we are. So as of April 2024, there are 1,499 communities participating in the community rating system in the United States. And so they are implementing local mitigation, floodplain management, and outreach activities, all of those communities. So these CRS communities have over 3.6 million flood policies throughout the US, and that counts for more than 70% of all the NFIP flood insurance policies. Okay, so here we have Florida on this graphic here. So I feel like I've gotten out of order. Okay. So we have, I'm all out of order. I'm sorry. I'm just all over the place today. So this is our Florida group. So we have 244 communities in Florida that participate in CRS, and that is 1.4 million policies and about $800 million of flood insurance premiums. So when you talk about a discount on flood insurance, that's huge. So we have, as you'll notice, we have like the red stars on that little table. So we have one community that is a 4, and that is Ocala. We have 4 3s, and it is Cutler Bay, Miami-Dade County, Monroe County, and one up by Jacksonville, but I forget what community that is. And then the community number, like that is a number 2, that is Pinellas County. And so, there we have our overview of
And lower is better, just.
lower is better. Lower is better.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so here we have the class ratings. So this shows the credit points earned, classification awarded, premiums reduced. So a class 10 community is not participating in the CRS and receives no discount. Today, most communities enter as a 9, sometimes an 8, and so they'll get 5% or 10%, depending on which one they are, on a discount on their flood insurance policy. So that's great. As a community engages in those additional mitigation activities, you get more credit points, and then you get the greater discount in your premiums. So under the current NFIP rules, this was not the case several years ago, the CRS discount is applied to all NFIP policies that are in a community. So this includes policies that are in the special flood hazard area, in your flood zone, or areas that are not in a flood zone. So if you're like, hey, if I overfill my pool, not that I've ever done that, and it happens to come in my house and there's damage, that's a flood. Like, your homeowner's insurance is probably not gonna pay for that. But you're like, hey, I have flood insurance, even though I'm not in a flood zone, you are still getting that CRS discount on your flood insurance premium. So it used to be you had to be in the special flood hazard area in order to get like that greater discount. They only gave, I think, 15%, but now they want you to have flood insurance whether you're in that special flood hazard area or not. CRS class changes on October 1st and April 1st of each year. And classifications are based on the community's CRS points. We have those there. And they're obtained from 19 activities. And I'm gonna go over a couple of them, but they under bigger subcategories of public information, mapping and regulation, flood damage reduction, and warning and response. Okay, so let's get to the good stuff, the Clearwater stuff.
So what you're saying is, is the county has a 2 rating? Is that,
We're totally getting to that.
okay.
Don't jump it.
And is that 40%?
Jeez, don't jump it.
Well, you
Come
just showed
on.
it to us.
Okay, so it's good news. Clearwater moved from a class 6 to a class 5. So now we're saving residents 25% on flood insurance premiums. In our last review, Clearwater earned 2,602 points for all of our activities. So our final determination score was awarded after October 1st of 2023. And so our discount couldn't be applied in April, but our discount will be applied in October because it's just the way the cycle works. So Clearwater has 8,855 flood policies. And it's about 1.6 million-ish in flood insurance premiums. So that's when you say 25% of that, so pretty good discount on that one. So, improvement initiatives. So these are things that we have gotten credit for. Let me just start over. So we have activities, 310 construction certificate management, which is elevation certificates, map information services, hazard disclosure, flood protection assistance, flood insurance promotion, flood data maintenance, stormwater management. So those are things that we have done for a number of years, and those things, those are the things that we get pretty much the same credit for year after year. And so I didn't cover those because that's kind of like some of our just normal policies that we do. If you want additional information on what we're specifically doing for those things, I can go over that. But the activities listed on this slide, we received new or additional credit, or it's a challenge for us to do it, or it's just really cool because we get a lot of points. Outreach. We have something called a program for public information. So we send out, the city itself sends out a lot of information with sunshine lines, and we do press releases, and there's a lot of things that we get credit for. But the big thing we get credit for is because we participate in a county-wide program for public information. So not all the communities in the county, but most of them, the smart ones will say that, participate in this group. And so we're all sharing information. We're all sharing resources. So anything that Pinellas County does county-wide, we get credit for it as well because we're part of the county. So there's certain things that they do that are just, within unincorporated. And so we don't necessarily get credit for those. Like if they send out a mailer to just unincorporated areas. But what the county does and what all of us do that are part of this program is we say, hey, this is the mailer I sent out. If you want to go and just change the letterhead, change a few words, go for it and send it out to your residents. And so it's a great opportunity to share information and just make that lift of being able to educate our residents a little lighter on all of us. Because honestly, who wants another mailer in their mailbox? Like, better off doing countywide promotions where we have, all of our hurricane fair stuff and things that are on a countywide basis rather than everybody doing everything individually. So that is a huge perk. Open space preservation. I like this one. This one I do entirely. All me. So we document the amount of open space that is in the special flood hazard area, which we have a lot. We have a lot of parks. We have beaches too, that, have wetlands and floodplains and all of that kind of stuff. And so this we get quite a few points for. We document how, our different regulations that require preservation and require us not to develop on things. And so we get a lot of points for this. We have management plans for a lot of our natural areas. And so that's all part of proving that we are preserving this open space, not just so we can have a really good developer come in, but we're preserving it for floodplain functions, among other things. Higher regulatory standards. This is not my forte, but I am super just proud of our floodplain management ordinance. It is awesome. I did have a little say in doing it, but it's a planning and development document, and so they did the heavy lifting of whatever. So a couple of things that we have in our floodplain management ordinance. Freeboard. In the building code, in the Florida building code, we are required to have 1 foot of freeboard, meaning you have the base flood elevation, which is determined by FEMA, and we'll do that other part of it in a minute, but it's determined by FEMA. And so we say, when you have that base flood elevation, you have to build 2 feet above that, not just the 1 foot. And so that extra level of protection, those extra flood waters that come in, the waves that come in, we are that much more protected by having that additional foot of freeboard. So that's written into our.
Sarah?
What
Yes.
is a freeboard?
Yeah, I'm getting a little confused. So they say you have to have 1 foot, we're saying you have to have 2.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Freeboard is space or a
It is.
material?
Yeah, we can go with space. So, the
Elevation.
building code says, your base flood elevation is what your flood maps say your water is going to get to when you have a 100-year flood. Not 100-year flood. Okay, let's, like a 1% chance flood. We'll go with that instead of 100-year, because that gets confusing. So a 1% chance flood is what all the maps say that your water is going to get to this level. And so that is your base flood elevation. And so Florida Building Code says, we're just gonna use easy numbers. It's 10. 10 is your base flood elevation. Florida Building Code says you need to put your lowest floor at 11. And the city of Clearwater says, that's not good enough. You need to put your lowest floor at 12. And so that's freeboard, is we have those 2 feet of buffer between where that flood water is going to come in a 1% storm.
In new construction.
No, yes, absolutely a new construction. But if you do a substantial improvement,
Oh, okay.
you also have to bring it up to code. And our substantial improvement is 50%. And that is 50% of your structure, not the value of, not the property appraiser that's gonna look at your land as well. So that's something that, you look at some of the houses out on the beach, which, I mean, let's be real, those houses on the beach are worth a ton. But it is not looking at the value of the property, it's looking at just the structure. So 50% of just that structure is very different than looking at the value of the land as well. And so that's where a lot of people get caught up, is they look at the property appraiser or Zillow, and they're like, oh, I can sell my house for $1 million, but it's like the structure is actually only 400,000. And so you can only do 50% of that before you have to elevate your structure.
Okay.
Does that make sense? It's very confusing. It is, I am not surprised if that's confusing, because it is convoluted.
And by
Super
elevate, you
convoluted.
mean bring up to code?
Bring it up to code and actually elevate it. Like you
Oh,
have to bring
okay.
up that base flood elevation. So I mean, we don't see it too much here, but in other places, people will go and, take their existing house, turn that into a garage, and then just build the house on top of it. You can, you can elevate slab on grade. It's complicated and expensive, but most people just tear down the house and build a new one that's elevated. But so many options. So that's freeboard and substantial improvement. Critical facilities. This is another thing we put in our code, is what the city defines as critical facilities need to be built above the 500-year floodplain. So that is more than just like the average elevation of things. But we didn't say it had to be out of the special flood hazard area, because we still need fire stations out on the beach. We still need a police station out on the beach. So it's like, we can't be like, no, we're not gonna build anything there. We said we are just going to elevate it so those structures are not going to be flooded in a 500-year event, what would that be, like 0.5% event. Really, really big event, 500 years. So we included that. We also included enclosure limits, which are, so when you build your house and elevate it and have your garage underneath, we said, you can't go and build your mother-in-law suite under there. Like, that's not allowed. And when they do build a house elevated like that, we make people sign an agreement that says you are not going to build anything under there, and it's filed with, not sure who it's filed with. Somebody at Pinellas County it's filed with. That's one of those building department things that I'm not 100% sure of. But so that agreement goes with the house. So maybe the property appraiser? I'm not 100% sure. No, I'm not sure who it goes with. But anyway, so we have enclosure limits on that one. Manufactured homes. So the general Florida Building Code rule is that manufactured homes are just 3 feet above the ground. And our building code says, no, they have to follow the same elevation that all other homes have to follow. So in some places, when they replace that mobile home, it might actually be closer to 10 feet off the ground, depending on where it is. Thankfully, we don't have a ton of mobile homes in those areas. We do have a few, but it doesn't impact a lot of people, thankfully. And then a coastal A zone. That is a wave action line. So we have a velocity zone that measures the waves coming in, and then we have a coastal A zone that is in the middle, and then we have an A zone that doesn't have the coastal waves coming in. Like the water will just rise, it won't have the wave action. So our newish FEMA maps identified this in between, this coastal A zone, where you don't have the huge waves, but you still have little waves. And so we regulate this coastal A zone, and that is not required, but we regulate that coastal A zone as if it was a V zone with those big waves. And so we don't have a lot of areas that applies to, but we have a few, and so you have to do that.
Sarah, just a quick question. What was the thinking behind that? Why did we rate it as it has big waves?
So a lot of times it has to do with debris. And one thing that was, I've seen videos of it, but it's not super common. When you have like a storm come in, the waves will go in between structures. And so you have these giant waves going in between structures. And so it's impacting this A zone that it wouldn't have normally impacted. But in this middle coastal zone, if you have the breakaway walls that's required where you have the big waves, it tempers it, and you don't have nearly as much waves going way over here to the A zone. So it's like a transition that we just put those V regulations to make sure that we're still having less waves over here. Like the water still goes up, but you don't have the velocity of the water quite the same.
But doesn't that have a negative impact for the person buying the insurance? Don't they pay higher premiums?
No, because for one thing, your house is built to standard, so it's built to the code, which is a higher regulatory standard, and so it wouldn't. And breakaway walls are a norm. Like, it's not something that would cause higher insurance. It's making your house more secure. You don't have a wave action beating against a wall that's going to cause your structure to move and have issues. You have a wall that breaks away when the wave action comes, and so it makes your structure that much more sound. If you have more questions, we can get into it.
No, I think that was a great explanation. So it's actually better for the consumer because they have to build better.
It is better.
Okay.
Yeah. Floodplain management planning. So this is our local mitigation strategy. I don't know if you guys have heard that. Hopefully you have. Hopefully my promotional materials have been getting to you. So our local mitigation strategy looks at all hazards. And once again, the county does it for us, and we just have to participate. So that's A+ for us. And it looks at all hazards. So flood, wind, fire. We were just talking today, like terrorism. It includes the COVID stuff. It includes all hazards. But because of where we live, a lot of it is flooding. And so we have a lot of that local mitigation strategy looks at a lot of mitigation options as far as flooding and things like that. So that's great. Acquisition and relocation. So I don't know if you guys have been on the other side of town to Kapok Park. It is one of my favorite parks, and part of it is because I know what it looked like before. So as you drive down a little hill, it is a hill, legit hill. It used to be just like this field of mobile homes. And now you go over this little hill and it's just like this pretty green lawn that has like this beautiful creek running through it, and it is awesome. So several years ago, I'm gonna go with 19, maybe 20, the city bought the mobile home park. Everything was on the up and up. And, you know, we bought the actual mobile homes from people, helped them with relocation, all that kind of stuff. And we removed 264 mobile homes from the floodplain. And so that was a huge challenge, a huge accomplishment, and that was great. So that is something that we continue to get credit for, and we're not supposed to have to, but every time we do our little review, we have to provide all of that information again. They're supposed to keep it year to year, but they don't, so it's like, we gotta dig all that stuff up and hand it to them again. So, a flood warning and response, I just gotta say, our emergency management people are rock stars. So, Pinellas County, again, handles emergency management stuff for the county, and we just have to prove that we participate in all this stuff Pinellas County does, and we do. Like, we have tons of stuff, like all of their emergency training that they do out at St. Pete Clearwater Airport, and like everything they do with the sheriff's department. We participate in all of that, and our guys do a great job of documenting everything they've done, all the after action reports, and so we pretty much get full credit for this, and it's all because they document the way they participate, and so that is terrific. Okay, future improvements. As I mentioned in previous slides, Glenna, Pinellas County achieved a Class 2 earlier this year. So I very much have the attitude that if they can do it, we can do it. But they also have a much bigger staff, and they have been actively working on this for many, many years. Like, their goal has been a Class 2 for a long time. So, you know, kudos to us for improving to a 5, and we need to celebrate that and not get caught up in the keeping up with the Pinellas counties. But we can challenge ourselves to get there. So I have this can-do attitude, but also, like, before you start jumping down my throat about, like, let's do it too, it does need to be a council priority, because it will cost more money, staff times, additional programs, all of that stuff. So we're working on a few things right here that'll get us a little bit closer, but it's something that it needs to be a citywide priority. This is not a Sarah priority. So we've already addressed low-hanging fruit as far as this program goes. I would say that we've even addressed the step ladder fruit. Like, now we're in like the cherry picker stage, I guess. So flood hazard mapping. We don't get any credit for this. It's complicated, but we can do it. So, and we wouldn't, like, there is 850 points in this category. And not that we would get them all, but we just have tons of potential in this category. We need to update our watershed management plans, and we need to adopt them to be regulatory requirements. So as people are building in different areas, we say, hey, you know, we're doing this study, we're doing this project, and this is going to change the way the flood maps work. So talking about Spring Branch, Jared, getting back to you. So what's going to happen is, after Spring Branch has been built, created, changed the bridges. So I don't want to get too off topic, but okay. So just to explain, think of like a floodplain like a bucket. And so you have, you know, all the rain going in there, there's plenty of storage there, and then you are building a road, and you go and fill that bucket with your sand and gravel and everything, and then you put your road on top of it, and that water has to have some place to go. And so that's what the Spring Branch project is doing, is taking all of that stuff that's in the bucket and dumping part of it out, so we have a little more storage in there. And so that's what the Spring Branch project's gonna do. It's gonna widen the creek a little bit, so we have a little bit more room in the bucket, and it's gonna make a couple other changes. And so that is what's going to change the flood elevation. It's gonna change the way the water moves and where it goes, for a benefit. And so once that project happens and we remap it and we submit that data to FEMA saying, hey, these are our changes, and these houses next to the creek are no longer in a flood zone because we added more space to the bucket. That is what we will get credit for in the flood hazard mapping and that sort of thing. Does that clarify some of the confusion with that project a little bit? Okay. Repetitive loss category. So we already have our repetitive loss areas mapped. Repetitive loss properties are super secret ninja list. Not supposed to tell anybody who has a repetitive loss property. But what we do is do a repetitive loss area. So, these 5 houses may have flooded when this particular storm drain overflowed. And we're like, well, those 5 houses are repetitive loss properties, but these 7 houses could have flooded from the same cause. So that is the area we make. So you can't identify the specific ones. You're like, oh, with that issue, this whole area could have flooded. And so as we're doing the repetitive loss analysis. So with those 7 houses, we're like, oh, it was a storm drain issue. And so that's what the analysis is looking at. All of our different repetitive loss areas and categorizing them by the type of flood that we had. There's one house that had a pool flood in repetitive loss, and so not really sure how you do that because it actually has happened 3 times. But we have a new floodplain administrator who is working on this project, so that's his problem, not my problem. So he is working on that analysis, so he can figure out how to make a repetitive loss area on a single individual who overfills his pool.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you, was that a homeowner issue or was it an environment issue?
No, that was a homeowner issue.
Oh.
3 times. I think they need to make their alarm louder, or, I don't know, put it on their watch, or I don't know, something. Okay, drainage system maintenance. So hopefully you guys all know how awesome our stormwater maintenance group is. They do a lot of work. They do a lot of inspections. We have a very comprehensive program, and we do everything that is required by DEP and EPA as far as our stormwater permit and inspections go. But the way we collect the data and our bookkeeping and management of our books is not the way CRS wants us to do it. So even though we are doing exactly what we need to do as far as CRS goes, we're not getting credit for it because it's not the way they want us to do it. So we are actively working on, had a meeting last week, still meeting about it, to figure out how to marry our current processes that are working really well and be able to document this stuff for CRS as well. So we should be able to get credit for that the next time we have a meeting and review and all of that kind of stuff. So those are my big 3 that are gonna get us to our next level. The 410, that is a prerequisite for getting to a class 4. So we have to do some of the mapping. We have to have those higher standards with the Pinellas County Vulnerability Assessment that we have adopted, that actually is part of our higher regulatory standards. With that, we should be able to get flood hazard mapping by adopting that and regulating to that higher standard. But we still need to do our watershed management plans and, you know, include our CRS stuff, include our future conditions of flooding, include sea level rise. And then with those, we also need to include our TMDL's water quality stuff, like all the things we talk about with that stuff as well. And so those need to be also included in our watershed management plans. But that's a whole nother, we'll get to that another day. So this was like word vomit of CRS stuff, like super a lot. And you guys have been asking questions throughout, so that's great. But if you have any additional questions, I can certainly try to answer them.
Thank you very much for the detailed presentation,
Yeah,
Sarah.
sorry. Super detailed.
Anyone on the board have any questions or comments?
I just have a comment.
Yeah.
I really admire and enjoy your passion. So thank you so much. That was really enlightening for me, and the passion that you exude is very well received.
Thanks.
Just one question to clarify. You said that we got from a 6 to a 5 on the rating. That this really needs to be a priority for city council to be on board to make this a priority, right? What level are you able to get without their support, in your view, and what level can you get with their support?
So I think with kind of our existing CIP that we're doing and our existing stuff, I think, and we do currently have a consultant helping us now with some things. I think we should be able to get to a 4 at our next review. Our next review will be in 3 years, and I think we should be able to get to a 4 with that. Beyond that is going to be a really big challenge, and I think we're really going to need a lot of help to really look at the city and see what things we can change and we can improve. I think the obvious things get us to a 4, and beyond that, we're gonna really have to scrounge and figure it out.
Thank you.
There's no mention of artificial turf as being a hazard in the CRS. I mean, I know it's just I know it's a very nuanced thing, but it's just becoming popular now, so.
So I am only going to state that if artificial turf is installed correctly and maintained as it should be, it shouldn't be an issue.
Meaning it would be penetrable for stormwater?
It says that it's pervious, like that water will go through it. So if it is installed correctly, per the directions, and maintained, so you continue to have that perviousness in it, it shouldn't cause additional flooding.
You need drainage underneath it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like, I think that's what the thing is. It's supposed to be, like, it's designed to be pervious, like grass. So you're supposed to have the rain that goes through it and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not, you shouldn't have brought that up. I'm just saying, like, I can't say anything other than if you install it the way it's supposed to be installed, it is a pervious surface.
Okay. That's good to know. I did not know that. I mean, I just have a family member who, probably didn't install it very well, but he had to punch holes in it because it was totally impervious.
Well, that might be
that
how
was
it
not
becomes
installed
pervious.
That was not installed
It was
correctly.
used also, so, who knows?
Any other questions or comments? I just have a couple briefly then, if that's all right. So if someone lived on a street and it was unincorporated and incorporated, and you had a next door neighbor who was unincorporated, they would possibly be paying 40% less for flood insurance.
They would
And
be.
you
Yeah.
living next door in the same place would be paying a
And
25%
Maybe that's a
discount.
huge incentive not to annex in, but, Clearwater solid waste is pretty great, so it's like,
Sure. But, yeah, so that is, that can be a stark
Absolutely.
contrast if you live in an unincorporated, kind of a mixed area there. And then the other thing you had mentioned was open space recreation. We had a presentation recently that indicated that there was space that we thought was open space recreation, and it wasn't. The Cooper's Bayou's a portion of that property there. So is there a way to look across the city and say spaces that are not zoned open space recreation, but possibly are used in that way or future use, and then change that number through
yeah,
things like
so
that?
I don't actually, well, I mean, I start with the layer of open space rec, like a land use layer, but I really just look at a map and I'm like, where are there no houses? Like, what is this space? Is it protected from development? And Cooper's Point is, like, it has whatever that restriction is on it. So even though it's not technically open space recreation, it's still preservation. And so it's still covered under my stuff. So I still get lots of credit for Cooper's Point.
Okay, so just because the zoning may not match specifically, if the use does.
Yeah. So we get credit for ball fields. So, I mean, we get more credit for Cooper's Bayou and Cooper's Point because it's in a natural form and you get a lot more benefits flood-wise from that stuff. But you still get benefits from a ball field. And so we still get open space, like credit from ball fields. So that's awesome.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Any questions or comments from the audience, please come forward and state your name, and you'll have 3 minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. Bill Johnson, 2694 Redford Court West. Sarah's presentation today has been more complete than ever that I've seen, and very helpful in understanding what's involved here. I started out with 3 questions. I've added a couple. The first question I had, is it reasonable to expect that Clearwater would reach at least a CRS level of 2? If the county did it, can we do it too? I think that should be our goal. I would recommend that this board recommend to the city council that they adopt that as a goal and develop a plan to get to that. One of the things that I had on my list is, should the CRS process be completed before the design work of the $100 million North Beach drainage improvement project? It seems like if we're going to plan for one thing, but when we get the CRS implementations, that may change how we get to our goal. And that relates to the 24-25 budget. Is it sufficient to at least implement the planned incremental multi-year plan to get to CRS level 2? And to help the council, I think it would be useful for them to know what the total savings are for all the flood policies in the city. I mean, I can say it's $80 for my home if we were, I think that's 2 levels higher. And I was astounded that the county having a better CRS rating is a disincentive to annex into the city of Clearwater. But I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bill. Sarah, will you be able to answer some of those? I think really specifically how the North Beach project will impact CRS?
So I mean, Marcus may be able to answer this a little bit better, but we don't have solid construction plans, so no. Most likely it will benefit, because we are looking at mitigation strategies to make it better, so it's not flooding as often, flooding as severe. But until we have a construction plan, until we know what those specific, I'll be done. Until we know like what those specific benefits are gonna be, we can't say like how that's gonna benefit the city CRS wise. It will, you know, like having mitigation strategies, like looking at protecting residents from sea level rise and sunny day flooding and all of that kind of stuff is a benefit, but we just don't know what specifically yet.
And I guess maybe Marcus could speak better to it, but that project is going to start in
I
another
think the
year?
RFP is
It's out,
on the
isn't it?
street for the design, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So, and you're working on CRS for, the 4 will be for the next one in a year, or?
Yeah, so, 3 years. So, well, I guess it's like 2.5 now. Time flies. But yeah, so
So this
we-
project could be included in, within that? if it went
Absolutely.
down the-
Yep, we can look at it and, you know, by that time, we would probably have, like, if it moves forward in the, you know, a reasonable timeline that we're talking about, like having the RFQ out now, PQ, whatever it is. You know, it's like we would probably have design documents and we'd probably have modeling. And so we could potentially have those models, like, work on adopting them. So yeah, there's definitely a potential of that.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Yeah, I don't think we need any confirmation. You're good, Marcus. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments from the board? The only thing I'll say, and Bill sort of mentioned it, and Sarah kind of touched on it as well. It might go a long way, a letter of support for trying to tackle a 2, if the board wanted to put something together. It sounds like we have some support for this, and to move a bit swifter than just incrementally from 5 to 4, but 5 to 2, and that might be a lot on Sarah's plate, but maybe if we can nudge the council that this would be a priority because it impacts the entire city in a positive way, and it sounds like there's a number of opportunities to tackle, whether it's land acquisition or infrastructure. Yeah, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, right now, I had mentioned the stormwater maintenance one. So we are like actively working on the stormwater maintenance working group. And so that's kind of what we've put together, is like these smaller city groups to tackle some of those specific things to be able to do that. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we're managing that right now, doing those 3 categories is those working groups. In addition to that, I talked about the PPI and the outreach, and we do need residents. Thank you, Jared, for volunteering previously. We do need residents to sit on that board, and that's something that we need resident stakeholders to sit on that to gain points for us as well. But yeah, like that would be helpful if you do write a letter to council talking about implementing more city staff work groups, forming more city staff work groups, so we can, as a city, tackle some of those things that are a little bit harder, a little bit more obscure for me to deal with. So,
Okay, thank you very much. So I guess, yeah,
Sorry, you mentioned a consultant working on this.
yes.
Which firm do you have working on it?
Atkins Realis.
I have
Okay,
a question, because she said to go from like a 4 to a 2, I got the impression that that was sort of a mammoth endeavor.
Expensive endeavor.
It is expensive. I assume it's expensive. I don't know, honestly. I'm not even gonna call it a roadmap. We'll say it's contours onto how to get to a 4. Not even a real, like, it's just a contour map, kind of, To get to a 2, I have no idea how to do that. And like, for me, it is a big jump, a big ask, and it's really intimidating and overwhelming. And so I would need a lot more support from other city departments. Our new floodplain administrator is really helpful, like he's a good resource. But I would need more from the city departments to be able to figure out how to make that jump.
Yeah, I think Bill brought up a good point, that making that jump, and if it's saving $80 to $100 on flood insurance times 8,500 policies, that's a sizable savings throughout the city. So that's something that I think is very tangible, and this is not something that's going to happen overnight. The next rating isn't for another 2.5 years or so. I think ultimately what we're looking for, I don't think we're going to try to put a timeline on achieving the 2, even though I think we would want it sooner than later. But I think the idea is that we want to express support for trying to achieve the highest possible goal for this area. And since Pinellas County's been able to get to 2, there might be some type of a roadmap there that, given more support and, from city leadership, that Sarah might be able to pick that up with other support from staff.
Yeah,
throughout the
I mean,
city.
but just in her conversation, it seems, well, one, I thought the same thing, that maybe the county has information or a roadmap that they can share of how they got there. But the conversation is that she doesn't even know what that looks like yet, right? So maybe it's not as daunting as we think. And if we
Sure.
could get the council to allocate some resources for Sarah to help her at least put a roadmap out there, then we could start projecting the money and projecting the tasks
Yeah.
to find our way there. But if we don't even delineate and draw the road, we're never going to get there.
Yeah, and I think overall the presentation it brings up something that might not even be on,
A list of priorities.
Right, or-
Maybe
or-
that would
or-
be
yeah.
our request, is to prioritize.
Yeah. And while I think infrastructure improvements and other aspects related to improved CRS score, that was a number one issue throughout the campaign for a number of incoming council members, so, and our existing council. That's why they supported the project that Marcus is working on for North Beach, is because they recognize the need for infrastructure. So yes.
Can I just make one comment? So
Yes.
we did get on the strategic plan for next year, the CRS working group. So it does say, which Sarah had already kicked that off, which was more of the citywide working group. And then she's done some subgroups. It didn't establish a goal for that working group as far as a rating, but at least the working group did make it onto the strategic priorities.
Okay, so if we were to write a letter, maybe we could include a possible working goal for that working group to be a 2.
That would be, that would make a lot of sense. that
Okay.
They could just then adopt that.
Okay.
And I didn't catch, sorry, one more thing. Sarah, you said there was a board that you needed people to join. What board was that?
Yeah, which, Mr. Johnson's also on it, but it is the Program for Public Information, and it has another acronym that is really long and really weird, so I just refer to it as the PPI board. It's stupid acronym. But yeah, like I need resident involvement on that one. And I think they just meet quarterly, virtually, so that's not a huge commitment. Yeah.
Would you be able to send that information to Cassie to share if anyone on the board
Absolutely.
would have
Maybe
an
we could
interest
put it in
in
the
that?
newsletter.
All right.
In my test,
Will you please come forward? Bill?
can I?
Yes, please.
In my comments, I realized that I created some confusion in saying how much my flood insurance
Oh, okay.
rate
okay.
would go down. I should say that's, for me, at 80 feet in the middle, not in the coastal area.
Sure.
So, and there's no creeks around me, but, so some of these properties would have thousands of dollars
Certainly,
of
certainly.
improvement if we got 2 levels higher.
Certainly, yeah, it could be more substantial depending on where your house is, certainly. Thank you for that, Bill. So with that, I guess what I'd be looking for, if we're in agreement with, yeah,
One more question for Sarah.
Yeah, sure.
A couple more
Sorry,
questions,
yeah,
actually.
please, yeah.
I saw you had the point system with the different classes. Have you seen those points change at all?
No.
Those have been the same?
So the point requirements have not changed. How you get the points changes all the time.
Okay.
Like every 3 years, they go and update the manual, so,
Gotcha.
yeah, how you get the points changes all the time, but the actual required points does not change. And they really try, like, all of the reviewers I've had that have gone through our programs want us to succeed. They want it to be a successful program. So they don't want to retrograde you. So it's like, if there's something that they're like, oh, you're really close to getting this, let's see if we can clarify something, whatever, to be that. So I feel like I've been very lucky with the reviewers I've had, that they're very supportive of the program, of us participating in the program. And so they've been, yeah, like when it's close, they're like, let's see how we can manage to get 20 more points.
Okay, so there is a potential to be, is it retrograded?
Yeah. So, I mean, it happened in South Florida. 3 communities in South Florida were not following the rules of the NFIP as far as their building requirements. They were allowing people to build without permits. They were substantially damaged, and they were allowing people to just go in and fix their houses. So they were not following the basic NFIP rules after the hurricane came through. What was it, Lee County and a couple others down there. And so they were pulled out of the CRS program, and we're gonna see if they're kicked out of the NFIP or not. Like, it's pretty serious what can happen if you screw up.
And you said the flood zone mapping was kind of like what's needed to get from a 5 to a 4? So these are, that section 1?
So if we do that flood mapping stuff, it's 500 points to go to the next level. So if we are able to have some of these studies done, use the vulnerability assessment that we have, use a couple of those things, it should be pretty easy to get to a 4. There's the prerequisites that we have to justify, and so that's a little bit of a challenge, but, yeah, we can do that.
Okay. I'm just thinking as a council, if we're gonna prioritize something in a letter, maybe we look at specifically where we get the most points, what gets us that next grade,
Yep,
you know, get you the resources you need.
thank you.
Sure. Any other questions? or comments?
Just one final comment, obviously, going from a 4 to a 2 and saving people money is always exciting, but the other side of the coin is that we're mitigating potential catastrophic damage. We just saw an amazing presentation about how this new marina is gonna be really beautified, right? However, when we have potentials for issues with flooding, right, that can be taken away in a second. And the cost of repairs can be detrimental. I mean, I moved here some time ago from New Jersey, and we had, a big hurricane up there that wiped out New Jersey. I mean, it's still getting rebuilt. And so I think it's really important to harp on that. It's not just the savings, which is amazing for current residents, attracting new residents because the cost is more affordable, but also having this beautiful place to live in
Yep.
long-term is key.
And that's like highlighting things like that is important, like with the K-Pop Park. It's like we restored that historic floodplain. That once was a swamp, a slough, and we took those mobile homes out and turned it back into a wetland. And so it's like that took so many people out of an area of potential impact. Same thing with Glen Oaks Park. I don't know if you guys were around when that was a par 3 course, and we went and made Glen Oaks Park, that lower soccer field is actually a floodable pond. And so it's like we've done those things, and we get credit for those, like through CRS, and we need to continue to do these higher level floodplain management things that aren't just, not just, raising seawalls are important, and the marina needs to raise their seawall, but we do these other things that also protect residents, these big, mitigation projects.
They also protect, there's so many other environmental benefits to them too, like protecting wildlife,
Natural and
habitat.
beneficial functions of floodplains, like, I got a whole 2-hour lesson on that one.
Oh.
Like, don't get me started.
Absolutely, I mean, it's just a win-win-win-win-win.
So what I guess if we have no other comments or questions for Sarah or anyone else, I'd be looking for a motion to draft a letter of support for improving our CRS from a 5 to a 2, I guess, is what we would be,
To the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
I'd go for that
Aye.
motion.
Okay, so I need someone to make the motion first, and then we need a second, so.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Kelly makes a motion.
Second.
For second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, none opposed, that passes. I guess I'll draft a letter unless anybody else would like to, and then submit it to Cassie to then send to the board for review, and if there's anything I leave out, omit, or need suggestions or edits, please give those suggestions to Cassie, and then she'll send those to me, and I'll incorporate those, and then send it back out to you guys, and then we'll send it on through Cassie for review, whatever the next step is for that, so,
Yeah, if you can do a rough draft, and then
Yep.
it could just be a group project for,
Yeah.
If
Yeah,
there's
I can-
other language that we think should be in there.
yeah, so I can draft something and have it to you, the end of this week, early next week, if that works.
Sure.
Okay, very well. All right, we'll move on then, if that's all right, to our next item, old business items. So we'll open that up to the board to old business, if we, anything. I know I have a couple of things for that, if no one else does. I'll just mention here, I had some stuff written here. Sorry, please bear with me. We had our presentation, we've talked about this, we've heard from residents about shark fishing for, since, I think, past July last year. We had a presentation recently. Other local municipalities passed ordinance prohibiting shark fishing. Our police chief, Eric Gandy, gave us a presentation on it, and residents came in at our last meeting to share their thoughts as well. Indian Shores wrote a resolution that was approved in 2023, and their ordinance was based on a 2014 ordinance that the city of Delray Beach put together, working with the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission. And I don't know any challenges to any of these ordinances that have been put out, the 2014 one or the more recent ones in Indian Shores or Reddington Shores. We were asked about this, we've heard about it, we've worked on this, looking to see if we have an interest as a board to, like we did for Sarah with the CRS, writing a letter of support, and we can attach some of the other documents that I've put together in research regarding how the city could approach this with a resolution and ordinance. Basically, the city currently has prohibition on shark fishing, and we'd be looking to ask the council to expand that to the north part of the residential part of the beach where residents have asked us to do that. So I'm gonna open this up to brief discussion to hear what the rest of the board thinks about this, and if we're in support, look for a motion of support to, again, like I said, write a letter to send to the council to move this on to them.
Yeah, I mean, you see on the TikTok these days, all these, shark attacks that are happening and stuff like that in the oceans. I think the shark fishing obviously draws that into public places. I think it's dangerous, I think it's stupid, and I agree. I think we should be expanding.
You bring a good point up. There was a shark incident where a guy was spearfishing near a beach and was
Saw it
recently,
today, yeah.
and just south of here in, I think it was Key West or so, it was in South Florida where this happened, so. It was a bull shark too.
I mean, I will echo the police chief's concerns regarding enforcement.
Yeah.
I do believe that is a concern, especially getting someone out there in time to identify fishing gear. Though I am in support of a shark fishing ban personally.
Okay.
I'm in support too. I mean, I pretty much know where they hang out. I walk North Beach a lot, up to Caladesi and up to to that portion. Yeah, I think that we could speak for the residents and in encouraging, encouraging that to happen.
Okay,
And-
yeah.
And it's just like a handful of people who are doing it,
I agree, and I think we can note that that can be a challenge, that was brought up, that the challenges enforcement, but ultimately, I think that, yeah, we should at least move this on, and if council, they can make a decision how they see fit, but if our board is in accord to prohibit the short fishing.
Well, I have a question because you said we already have an ordinance.
We do.
So why is there a question then on who would enforce it if we're already doing it?
It's because it would expand the space of where it's not allowed. So currently, it's not allowed where there's already a number of officers enforcing other laws along where.
Swim beach.
Yeah, the swimming portion of the beach where there's the guard towers. And so we're looking at a portion north of that where police typically don't patrol that part of the beach.
So then where are we going to expect these people to do their fishing?
Anywhere else,
Where would that be?
that's any other beach that isn't where it is prohibited.
And I don't believe it's not a prohibition on all fishing, it's just specifically shark fishing.
Yeah.
Drawing.
From the
large-
shore.
Yeah,
Yeah.
large predators in
Yeah.
close to the beach. I think that's what the concern is.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering why, when they first made the ordinance, did they not include this space? Do you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Chief Gandy was here at our last meeting and would have addressed that as a concern more than, I didn't think about the historic aspect of why when it was crafted, it only limited it to that portion of the beach,
Yeah.
but that's where it's limited to, and that's why we're looking to expand it to the north part.
and so did we get the question answered about who would be doing the enforcement?
Clearwater Police.
They said they would do the enforcement, but they said it would just be tricky in identifying fishing gear. It would rely on their officers to understand what type of gear the fishermen are using, and like, is this someone that's actually shark fishing, or they're just fishing for large tarpon, or some other fish like that? And then
Right.
they say it would just be a little tricky on that. So I think this is one of those, I believe it would go a long way to have a lot of informational signing up
Mhm,
there on North
mhm,
Beach.
yeah.
So if there is a prohibition on shark fishing, having some sort of signing up there to help as a deterrent would be honestly the best bet.
So that's
I
something
think
we could note.
educational, try to emphasize education,
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's funny too, because I just came back from California. I was there for a month. And I could not believe the number of shark attacks in Florida that were on the news in California.
Big
I was
news.
like, where is this happening at? Because I live in Florida and I don't really hear too much about this. And then it was prolific on the TV. I was quite surprised. I'm like, what is going on? Are we seeing a big increase of shark attacks or?
I don't think that's actually the case from what the research I've seen is that it's not necessarily more shark attacks or shark incidents. It's just we're finding out more about them more
Yeah.
frequently.
I mean, New Smyrna Beach has shark,
Yeah.
I think I saw last summer was 43 shark attacks just in the first couple of months of summer.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're not talking large shark, you're talking, 2-foot-long shark that just bit someone's heel.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
you're not
yeah,
talking
some of them are,
fatal
yeah,
shark
yeah.
attacks are large, but I
I
mean.
believe the statistic is that the Gulf of Mexico has more, like, the Florida and Panhandle and all that has more shark attacks than anywhere in the world, but they're not deadly compared to like the ones in Australia and everything, because we have little
Yeah.
sharks, but we have aggressive sharks.
Yeah, yeah, and they come into shore to feed, so, yeah, so I guess that's what, we're looking to do here is, push, a letter to city council to, look toward expanding the prohibition of, shark fishing specifically on, the residential part of the beach. So if that's something that we all are, in agreement with, I guess I'd be looking for another motion to
Can-
draft a letter.
can
to-
I
Yes,
say something
Cassie, yes,
first?
please, yeah.
I feel like Jared questioned the legality of us being able to do that. So would we consider another approach, the educational approach, instead of the ordinance, which we know would be tricky to enforce? Could we encourage city council to do
Well,
some
I think our letter
education on
would,
it?
I think what we, I guess what we'd be looking for in our letter to council is, if they wanted to go that route, but we can also add and give to them our, you know, the wording and language as a addendum to our letter so that they can consider that as well. And if it's something that they really feel wouldn't be up to legal, because when I spoke with the city attorney, he wasn't familiar with any of the stuff that we had written. So I don't know that he could speak to if it would be legal, because he didn't see what we had even drafted or written. So I
Well,
think
it seemed like-
council would then let the city attorney and that department know if they have, if they also support doing this, they would let the city attorney know that they would support doing something like this. So
And then more legal research maybe need to be done. That's the impression I got, that there was more research that needed to be done if we're talking about an ordinance.
Yeah,
And
he
that we would
didn't-
need council
yeah,
to,
Yeah,
I know when I looked at the property appraiser website, there are a few properties along North Beach that do have extended their property lines to the water,
yeah,
in which case the ordinance would not cover private property.
right.
So I do believe maybe going the education route would potentially go there with, you know, further going on to an ordinance. But
Yeah.
I believe maybe going the education route might be a better bet, especially for that community that lives up on North Beach.
Okay. So how, what would that look like?
would there be a resolution?
Well, no, and education would just be signage and
Would be
and a
signage.
hope that,
Yeah, signage and hope and maybe a mailer.
right.
Yeah, and because, you know.
We could potentially look, I shouldn't say this, but we could potentially look for a grant, and, I mean, Melody did the stormwater education grant last year, and that included signage out on several of the parks, printed materials, social media, a website, a webpage on our website. So it was a pretty comprehensive campaign, so something like that, I was thinking. But we would need city council direction because, well, first we would need, depending on how you wanted, if you wanted to look for both the resolution and the education, or one or the other, either one would require staff time, so we would need city council approval for that.
Mhm.
And I mean, I think when you say that, we just had last weekend, we had SharkCon over in Tampa. I'm sure there are vendors or other organizations that would be willing to help us with any sort of funding there. We might be able to write something with them. I feel there's potential for that.
I can draft the letter to write whatever it is that we feel we want to have city council do. I just, like I said, from what residents and other local communities have done, I thought the, kind of strengthening the rules for where the, you know, activities allowed is going to be the, you know, the strongest show of, you know, that we don't, you know, want this activity going on.
Yeah.
But, you know, we can, you know, it's, you know, whatever, we'll do what I guess what we feel, you know, is the right tact and the one to achieve results. So if it's education and, you know, because we can't enforce or make those changes, then
I think education just gives us less potential for legal pushback.
sure.
We could say, you know, do the ordinance, and then there will be the areas that are extended to private property, and those fishermen will have to have permission to be on that private property. But again, that resident would have.
Or I guess we can try to do both, where we ask for a period of education, see how that goes over a course of time, and then go back and say this is another option that we've explored, and
Yeah.
do something like that.
Potentially.
So that can kind of cover both of those bases, and if the education doesn't work after, you know, whatever the time frame is, we can say after 6 or 12 months or something, and ask for, you know, if we had stakeholders from North Beach come here, and we can ask another, you know, ask from them how things have gone, if it's improved or not, and find out from the city how it's gone on their side, if they've had to deal with more phone calls or deal, or, you know, whatever interactions. So, how does that sound, Cassie? Doable? Workable?
It's up to you. I mean, it's your letter.
Yeah.
So I make a motion that, that we draft a letter to council requesting an education campaign on increasing, discouraging shark fishing on North Beach, North Clearwater Beach.
I like that. I'm looking for a second.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, none opposed. Then I can put something together like that. I will do my best to read my handwriting later. And
Discourage.
yeah.
This is
Yep.
recorded.
Thank you very much. Thank you guys for that, and I'll send that to you, Cassie, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll send it back out to everybody to go back and forth to make sure the wording is just as we've discussed here. One other old business item I had was, again, something that we had discussed briefly. I saw a news article last month, and it's about the phosphogypsum radioactive roads. And we've talked about this a little bit, and at our last meeting, we had a discussion that, you know, there's this back and forth between the EPA and the state. Well, the EPA, according to the Tampa Bay Times in June, is poised to make a decision later this year to allow Mosaic to do their testing on an expanded amount. It's more than what they had initially asked for, so now it's like 1,200 pounds and 1,200 feet when it, yeah, anyway, so I guess I'm just asking, again, if we talked about this before. This was something that was brought up. It came from Suncoast Surfrider had reached out to me about this initially and brought this to my attention. I know we had our discussion last month. Our code, our development code, our ordinances have a list of acceptable asphalt and other materials that can be used for roads within our city. I know that it was mentioned that there are a number of state roads and other county roads within our jurisdiction, but I feel that we can still, again, write a letter to council and include our wording that we've done in the past, which is just expanding the city's current use of accepted materials or banned materials, and add this product to it. Whether or not this test moves from test phase to actual product, we don't know that, but we can be ahead of it and say that this is a product that, if it is allowed or to be produced, we don't want it here on our city roads. And if the time comes where the state is using it on state roads, we can say that this is a product that our city doesn't want to use. Can you please not use it in the state roads that are going to be built in our city? So, but we won't be able to do that if we don't take an action and say that this is a product that we don't want at all. So I'm just asking if the board has an interest in pursuing this as well, and asking council to add this item, phosphogypsum road, or phosphogypsum for road construction, to its current list of accepted or unaccepted materials for roads. So again, this would be something that we can just send to council, and if they don't want to do anything on it, they don't have to. But we did something on it, and what we do is, you know, forward it on for more action. So, but our action can be that we don't want this, or we can, not do anything on it. So that's what I'm bring up for you guys to also discuss, if it's something you guys think that we can move forward on, or something that we should not. So that's open up for, yeah, Glenna?
I think it's always good to be proactive on issues, and not wait for them to come up. I think it was sort of suggested to us, hey, we don't even know this is going to be an issue. We don't know what's going to happen, But it's always better to already put a word out and say, this would not be recommendable by, our citizen advisory board, and that, that we speak for residents in that regard.
Well, I think that there's also just so many questions that, they're gonna do this test, but, and I can send this article out to everyone too, but within it, some of the same questions that we had brought up in terms of long-term effects, scientists asked the same thing in the article and mentioned the same issues of, stormwater runoff and the impacts of that product, and how that impacts the rest of, where that stormwater goes, and that being a potential issue. So there are a number of concerns that may not be addressed for a long time, but we can certainly say that at this point right now, this is something that we don't,
Yeah, and once the road is laid, it's a little too late.
Well, and we
Yes.
can reiterate it if it starts to become, if it does, pass and starts to be used on state roads, and we can
Yeah.
come back at that point too.
Yeah, certainly.
Now, maybe is this something that, because you said there's a lot of unknowns, if it is something that comes, 20 years down the line, it's like, oh, this is a safe product to use, should we allow, future boards to recommend, like, okay, we can add this back into the product that, because it's an abundant resource locally, here within Florida. When you're talking about shipping lime rock base from South Miami or the other areas, this is an abundant resource. I don't want to put the city in a financial bind later on by saying absolutely not, if it is proven to be a safe alternative.
Yeah.
So.
Proven to be a safe
It's already-
alternative.
What'd you say, sorry?
I was just saying proven to be safe. I mean, I don't know, we can include that in the letter,
Well, I'd say if we put like a, it's, because there's going to be studies on this for long term.
caveat, yeah.
Yeah, we're going to say, all right, we'd like to see this removed from.
Well,
typical
and I think in
materials.
20 years, someone would just say, hey, it's not a product that needs to be on that list anymore, and we can, by whatever mechanism at that point, just remove it. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, because there are still a number of unknowns, but that's, I think what is known is that it is a radioactive product, and
Do we know how radioactive?
no.
Okay.
But enough that the EPA has banned its use. But they're gonna open up the possibility of testing its use now, and like we've said before, it's a bit of I think a lot of lobbying by the part of a multi-billion-dollar company that
Has to
has a waste product that's trying to create a monetized product from something that's waste. Like you said, it is very plentiful, and that's why they're trying to figure out a way to
Yes.
use it, so.
I've done work down there. I've
Yeah.
seen the stacks.
Yeah. But, yeah, I definitely appreciate that. I think we had a discussion about that before, and the idea is that right now, all of this radioactive material is in one place versus having it on roads throughout the state and the entire country,
Yeah.
so.
Do you have information on that? Like how, radioactive it is, or?
I don't. The work I do down there is wetland restoration. So I got there when
Right,
they
okay.
tear it up, I get down there and make sure that everything's still healthy and that everything's been put back properly, historic
Right.
stream beds and everything. But I mean, the stacks are massive. You see, they take up a very large area, so I know it's an abundant resource relatively close by. I know when we talk about Lime Rock Road Base, they're sometimes pulling it from Miami, there's quarries up in Alabama. It's just a much larger cost when it comes to shipping that material for redoing roads. I don't want to take it away from the city in the future entirely, but like you said, it could be, obviously, it's been proven safe. Let's just go that route.
All right, so,
Would you
Would
See,
we-
putting a caveat like that in this letter, like that, you know.
No.
I think he's just saying it's common sense. At that point,
Yeah.
it's kind of like 20 years,
Yeah,
all right,
it's
there's
20 years
common
if
sense
it's-
saying it's
yeah.
come out safe, let's just remove it.
It would be common sense, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think we need to give them an out later. We'll
Yeah.
let them
Yeah, I mean,
find
I'm
their
thinking about
own.
like clean coal and stuff like
Well, I
that.
was more giving like a hard line, like, it's banned for the next 20 years, or something like that, while we're awaiting long-term studies. So, like, it can't be even considered for the next 20 years, of how I was thinking about it. So, versus someone saying, oh, yeah, 5 years later, it's been good, let's go ahead and,
I do think that that might help with the city council, because currently it isn't known, really. So if you just say, hey, we want to ban this material for indefinitely, I feel like they would say, well, why don't we just wait for the studies and then we'll make the decision? Whereas if you say, hey, we want to temporarily ban this until a certain time, that might be more favorable to them.
As you're saying in the wording, like, we should ask that this be banned until
I'm
the
not
city
saying you should do
deems that
anything.
there's a
I'm just saying
time when
Yeah.
the
It
studies
might be
have
more
come out that.
well-received if
but
it
I don't
is
know.
defined.
It'll-
I think
allows
it's
a future
huge
out.
lobby.
It'll-
Yeah,
More
I
information.
guess
Everyone's looking at
that's
this.
the problem with being proactive, is that,
Yeah, it
you
is.
know.
I mean, with all of the issues that we have with red tide and all of, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't want to chance it, to be honest.
Sure.
I mean, the effects are, things would be decimated, and then, oh, gosh, we were wrong, maybe we shouldn't have done this, but we're not going to take these roads up now, you know what I mean? It's
Well,
like,
Yeah,
and
I mean, but Piney Point.
I think from my perspective, this is a product that by federal standards isn't allowed, but now we're going to be able to test it. So that's how much power this organization has as a company, to be able to change federal regulations to allow this caveat for them to test this. So to that end, I think that there is, yeah,
And notice it says Mosaic wants to start testing phosphogypsum. It doesn't say the EPA wants
Right.
to start, Mosaic
Right.
wants to
a
start,
company,
right? So
the company
they're-
that has this product.
They're gonna use their data to then present to the EPA of why that should be overturned. So I think we're safer off just not having this as part of our roadways.
Yeah.
Until it's such time that data could be validated by third parties.
Sure,
Right.
sure.
I
Yeah, I
mean,
think that's a really good point.
there's lots of pesticide studies that show, that there are no issues, even though 2 generations later, children are being born with the residue in their bodies, so,
Right.
I will say, though, going forward,
Yeah.
because this is Mosaic, and
Yeah.
they are a client of my company that I work for, I'm gonna recuse myself from any motions that
Okay.
are made on this.
Okay, very well.
Fair enough.
I appreciate the disclosure.
Sorry, because by law, if there's no financial impact
Mhm.
to this motion,
Mhm.
like,
You can still be involved?
He has to be, right? At least that's what city council said the other night.
Okay, so as long as you just give disclosure, I think you're okay there
Okay.
then.
or he can
Yeah.
just abstain from giving a vote, couldn't he?
Yeah, he could abstain.
No.
unfortunately, because you're not gonna make or lose money on
Okay.
whatever the decision is, you are
Is
not
it-
allowed to abstain. from the
Okay,
vote.
I just wanna make sure I just wanna make sure it's open, that, like, I'm not.
Unless your wetlands mitigation is paving it all.
No, I just don't wanna,
All right.
just try to be clear on everything, and
All right, well then, with that, I think, do we have any more discussion on this? Or I'd be looking for a motion to draft a letter asking council to add phosphogypsum as a material on its, I have to see it's, what they call that, the list of products that aren't allowed for road construction, but, yeah, that's what we'd
The
be.
prohibited product.
Yeah,
In road construction
yeah.
and Clearwater.
Well, I'd like to motion that one.
Okay, I'm looking for a second.
Could you restate the motion?
The motion would be to ask council to add phosphogypsum to a list of prohibited materials for road construction.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I don't want to make it sound like we're ordering or telling the council what to do.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
that
we're
it's
ask-
our
yeah.
recommendation.
Okay.
And that we suggest that they have this added to the list of prohibited products.
Okay,
You know what I mean? Kind of like we're giving them our input, but we're not trying to tell them how to do their job.
I'd like that. I like that very much. Yeah.
So I'll second the motion where we give them our input.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, I'm sorry. And then we're looking for, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? None? All right. Thank you very much for that, guys. We'll move on to another old business item. The last one that I had would be the road medians. And this is something that last meeting, Bill Johnson came and asked for us, board, to take a specific action on, I guess, this would be asking, again, council to prioritize the median landscaping throughout the city. And I don't know that it's necessarily prioritizing, it's looking at how our medians are landscaped throughout the city. And I think trying to provide a balance so that some of these worst-case scenarios throughout the city and some of these other places that are,
Can I see that?
oh, yeah.
These are before and after pictures, right?
Yeah. And so, after Bill's presentation, I had noticed driving around, and you guys probably may have as well, that there is a different level of quality throughout the city when you're driving around. And so I think this would be to ask council to make it a priority to look at bringing back some of the landscaping that the city used to use, or some other best practices that the county and the state use, because I think that there are some county and state roads throughout the city that are well landscaped, but also lower maintenance. And I think that is a concern, is putting in plants that are just going to die, or putting in plants that are going to take a lot of maintenance and staff to maintain. We want to be,
I would
cognizant of
encourage
that as well. But
Native planting. for
but
that
I
purpose.
think that there's a lot of benefit to adding more foliage in opportunities where, we have them, so.
This could actually have a really large impact as well, not just with foliage and beautification. I'm seeing here we have bare ground, and which could cause, we're talking erosion, which gets into our storm systems, which goes right back to our flood plan, how to try to maintain our storm system.
Yeah.
It's easier and more cost-effective to maintain a landscaping than it is to get in a vac truck and try to clean out pipes and storm sewers.
Very true, yeah.
And it would all help towards, I think, that overall goal, especially on our state roads as well. I was thinking, we're on US 19 and on State Road 60, we have partners. We're not the only one, like for our, this MS4 permitting, municipal stormwater storm system, don't remember all the S's. We're a co-permittee with Pinellas County and FDOT, and it's something on those roads there, we could work together on possibly reducing, either getting grants from them to help increase, funding for that, and reducing the erosion and the overall, because I'm sure they want to see that as well. It's all part of it.
No, you bring up some other really good points that, as far as the environmental impact that these medians have. I think those are extremely valid, and you can look at a couple of different medians and see how one, it looks like an improved opportunity for stormwater runoff, and one is a hazard waiting to happen, so, yeah.
I have
couple
my
other
experience is, we have a lot of median, we have a median, both medians and bump outs that the city has planted for the first time since they put them in 2011, and at our request in my neighborhood. And it's one of the key things is irrigation. If you don't irrigate, plants die in this state. It just seems like that. I mean, I don't know if there's drought-resistant native planting might
There
you
is,
know,
just-
be the,
I mean,
Yeah.
that one
the
picture I had
answer.
right there was, there, what you could see in the picture, there was irrigation.
Yeah,
Was there?
yeah, you can see
Yeah.
the irrigation, and, yeah, and some of these, the irrigation was added a long time ago, and, yeah. and
Well,
plants
we
were
had it
removed,
too, the
and-
original, and a lot of it had to be fixed. That had not been, had been not on a plan at all, you know, since 2011. So, you know,
Yeah, and that's gonna be a cost, and
Maintenance,
not
it's a
just the
maintenance
landscape
issue.
itself, but the irrigation, and, I think, you know, there could be some opportunities, like Glenna said, where the, plants that are used are, you know, more native or Florida-friendly that require much less
drought
water.
resistant.
Maybe there's water trucks that can, you know,
Yeah, it also gives us an opportunity for a couple different things. I think if you look at like Cleveland Street and the medians there, how aesthetic they are and how that actually brings up your mood when you know, when you used to be driving down that street, but when you go down that street, you know, this gives us an opportunity, maybe we could put more art in the city in some of these medians. And I just think if you look at like the biggest bang for your buck, like curb appeal of a house, this is like curb appeal of our city,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
This can do a lot to promote the aesthetics and the well-being of the city. Like I said, we could get community involvement, if maybe we could put in artwork in some of these areas, or maybe we could even get some businesses to adopt, or some communities to adopt a median, and then it's their responsibility to take care of it, or plant it, or what have you. I mean, this is a huge opportunity for community engagement as well.
yeah, those are great points. Cassie, do we have an Adopt a Median program? I know other cities have a program like that. I think Largo has an Adopt a Median program. Do we have anything like that?
I'm not sure. I'd have to look into that. I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah, I know we've had some more recent Adopt a programs start, parks or some other spaces, so, yeah, I think those are great points, because, there are a lot of opportunities throughout the city for people to put a little sign up and say, and go
Yeah.
out there and clean up their medians and, yeah.
Or plant it, or do whatever, and,
yeah.
I mean, you know, anything where we can get community engagement.
Absolutely, and creates community pride.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I know when I've done some work with FDOT with some of their stormwater permitting, they get credit for like how many bags of garbage are collected from the Adopt a Highway program.
oh, okay,
So it's something we, again, if someone does adopt a median, might be able
Yeah.
to gather that garbage, and they potentially, if we know, I don't remember how exactly they use it,
yeah,
could go back to getting credit for those as well.
that's a great point. All right, it sounds like we're all in agreement that we would like to ask council to support, I guess what we'd be, I'm trying to figure out what the best way to word this would be, and I'm open to any suggestions here, but,
Maybe to encourage council to implement more community engagement through enhanced programs to improve the aesthetics of the medians, be it through, you know, adopt a median program, or, you know, community involvement with planting or something of that nature.
okay, this is.
But we are asking for planting and irrigation and maintenance of existing medians.
Right, yeah,
where-
that's one aspect, the community engagement aspect, but then also we want to ask council to, or encourage council to set as a priority, looking at the medians or doing a median assessment. I think that's the first thing, is figuring out
Which ones
what,
need priority?
what the
needs it, yeah.
detriments are,
I
what
would
the
say
needs
an
are.
assessment
and-
first.
Yeah,
Well, we could ask the community to give input, couldn't we? I mean, how did this come to light? Somebody must have complained or
Bill,
something, right?
do you want to come forward here just momentarily and share? Yeah, Bill has been, Bill, like I said, spoke to this issue at our last meeting and asked for the board to take an action on this, and that's why we're looking to take some action on it now.
Just a little bit of history. When I was on the city council, was aware, and we approved some agreements with FDOT. They have a program where they will fund an enhanced level of landscaping on their right-of-way if the city will maintain it afterwards. Now, I'd rather they install it and maintain it, but this is the agreement that's been made statewide. And so we've had these on Gulf to Bay. There's one implementation on Missouri, implementation on the Drew Street overpass. And recently, I have observed that they have downgraded the landscaping in order to reduce their maintenance costs. So they've changed their policy to not, to do something similar. So then the next thing I did is I went out and looked at Largo and Dunedin and Oldsmar, and they have implemented a higher standard than what we're currently using. In the Drew Street, actually they came in and removed the low understory plants because some of those plants would die and then you'd have to replace them. So it's, as I say it, it's to implement a similar quality to our nearby cities.
Keeping up with the
And
neighbors.
to do it consistently. And as I said to the council last week, that Disney considers their appearance of their community, their properties, as everything the environment speaks to the community. And having kind of less attractive landscaping articulates a standard. Now, we have a high standard for Memorial Causeway, and a lot of the citizens have told me, well, we spend more on our tourist areas, and what's wrong with spending it on our neighborhoods, on our roads that attract investment in our neighborhoods?
Yeah, I think, to Bill's point, I think what we're looking for is consistency throughout the city. And that, I don't think anybody's expecting the highest level of service that the beach, the roadway to the beach has for all the tourists. But when you see the difference of that to some of these, it's a stark contrast. And I think that what we're looking for or asking council for is a balance and consistency. And so,
And
Right.
almost as good as Largo.
Well,
thank you very much, Bill.
I mean, the people who come to the beach, yeah, they spend money and, provide tax money too, but so do all of we who own
So do
houses
we.
in the city.
Right.
Sure.
Right? And we're here every day, and we're driving past these every day. So I think we deserve at least as good as the tourists get, personally.
Certainly. And I think for a number of environmental reasons that we've brought up, that this makes good sense to explore. So,
Plantings are good for air quality.
Yep.
They're for,
and aesthetics as well, and other
Quality of
stormwater
life.
issues, and it kind of runs the
Absolutely.
gamut there. So, yeah, I guess what we're looking for then would be a motion to encourage council to implement similar and consistent quality in our medians throughout the city.
Quality and aesthetic.
Yeah.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, great. We can move on then to our director's report, unless there's any other old business from anyone. I think we covered a lot of old business there. Thank you. Cassie, thank you. You're still here with us?
Yes. Just to kind of, a couple of things before I get into the director's report. I did follow up with staff after Bill's presentation last month, and I don't think that staff agrees with his presentation. So the person I spoke with said, you can pick and choose photos. You can pick some of our bad median photos, and you can pick some good photos from Largo. But you could also go find some bad photos in Largo and some good photos in ours. So, because I had kind of been asked if we could get a presentation to EAB. So just want to throw that out there that staff may not agree that we're not already doing what you think that
Sure.
we're doing.
Yeah, I don't think we're gonna look to compare the city to other cities. I think what we're looking to do is compare the city to other parts of
The city.
the city. And I think we recognize that some parts of the city are state road, and there might be other things in the background that make it so these intersections or these medians are different than others. But it sounds like there's opportunity at some of these intersections to work with these partners and possibly have some improvement there. So I think that's what we're looking for
Yeah,
overall.
I mean, just
Yeah.
even if you look in our city, we have those, I guess, they're utility boxes that are painted.
Yeah.
I
They're wrapped.
love those.
Yeah.
That's a public art program.
Yeah, I love those.
Yeah.
I would love to see more of that sort of activity in our community.
Yeah.
You can come into Morningside and look at our bulb outs now. They just got planted by the city, and the irrigation was, was maintained, maintenance, they applied maintenance, so,
Well, you guys
All
have some
the
really
heads are-
good stormwater murals in Morningside too.
we have one storm drain one. It's,
The storm drain mural. sorry,
Yeah, we have a
The
little
one right
one.
there in Harn.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's not, I don't think it's native planting, but it's plant, but, I think it's Florida-friendly planting, and it's pretty, it can be done. City can do it for a neighborhood that fights for it,
So, yeah, I'll drop that on, I'll send it to you, Cassie, and again, the same thing, we'll, make sure that it looks right and then forward it on to city council, and we'll find out whenever they want to read or discuss any of this, or any of all of these, and we'll try to make sure that our board is at these meetings to kind of help promote the importance of all of the things that we've been working on. All right, so, okay, anything else from your director's report?
Yeah. That was just not part of the director's
Just an
report.
aside, sorry.
But the other thing I was going to say is we've now got 4 items that you all have made motions to write some letters to city council. And bear in mind, I'm new to this position, but I do remember, and I just pulled up my email, when Micah was the director, I had just started, but the city council does ask the EAB for legislative priorities. And that happened in November of last year. And the EAB gave a list of 4 priorities. So I just wonder, we're in July now, if maybe we just get this kind of going and then present that at that time, as opposed to trying to give them 4 other things right before we give our legislative priorities. I'm not sure exactly how it works, but I'm just saying perhaps that would be, since
Is this
we
for
already-
the state, legislative priorities for the state, for our state lobbyists?
Yeah, is that for us? Yeah, that's what that is.
Okay,
Yeah, that was a new thing that we tried to do with Micah last.
That was a fertilizer ban.
Yeah, yeah,
well,
Yeah, we came in late on that
let
one.
me pull it back up, because I closed
Yeah.
it.
It'd be nice if we could identify early any legislative priorities that we wanted to.
Now, we do have our presentation to city council. That's sometimes in November, sometimes in September, sometimes in October.
I thought it was
I don't-
always November.
It had been, and then we moved it up last year, I believe, and then I think we found out that we can have it sooner, because there's like all the advisory boards that give their presentations, and then it's just kind of like one after another. We can,
Are you suggesting we're being too ambitious?
Well, no, maybe I misunderstood then from what those priorities were. I thought they were just priorities that we gave to city council.
no, the legislative priorities were, from this board to council, the council pays for a lobbyist to go to Tallahassee, and that's what those are
Okay, so that's
supposed to be
separate from
for.
this.
So,
Okay.
like Glenna said, because they were looking at, that fertilizer ban, that
Right.
was something that we wanted council to tell the lobbyist that was
To
something of,
prioritize,
yeah,
right, because we.
something of importance from us, so.
But November's too late. They
Mhm.
need, I don't know when city council determines their slate of priorities for the state, but that
It
that
has
is
to be
something we
ahead of
need to be
that, yeah.
thinking about.
Yeah, and that's what I
If
said,
we-
like
if we
last
want
year,
something.
I think it was a new thing, we had never done anything like that, and Micah wanted to try that with the board, I guess, and maybe that's why it got on a little bit. Timeline-wise,
Probably.
it wasn't,
Yeah.
too feasible. But, in terms of our presentation to council, I can understand wanting to do a presentation to council and presenting all of these items at that time.
Is
But that's knowing when when that presentation would be, and I don't know if we know when that would be at this point.
Okay, so then moving on to the director's report. We have a couple of things I'd like to update you on that you may or may not be aware of. But on Monday at City Council presentation, so on July 15th, we took the EECBG, which is the Energy Efficiency Conservation Block Grant, to City Council, and it was approved to accept that grant. So that grant will be used to purchase the city's first 2 electric vehicles, as well as install a electric vehicle charging station at our fleet building, as well as build out some future electrical upgrades for more EV chargers in the future. So that went through, so we're really excited. We're getting our first electric vehicles.
And that was on what monies? With what monies?
EECBG is from the Department of Energy. It's a federal allocation.
It's a federal,
Allocation.
okay.
And then back in June, we also, General Services went to City Council on June 6th with our proposed solar projects. So those also were approved and will be getting started shortly. So Morningside Rec Center and General Services facilities will be receiving solar. So that should be coming, it's been approved, so they're already working with the design company on that. And then there will be 2 more projects hopefully coming up next month for the gas building complex and the solid waste transfer station. So those should be on hopefully next month's agenda.
You said Morningside and the other?
Morningside Rec Center and
So the ones that are already passed is Morningside Rec Center and General Services.
Okay, great.
And then the
That's
next.
what I thought you said.
Yeah, the
right.
next will be the gas and the solid waste.
what was the second one? Gas and?
The solid waste transfer
Oh,
station.
solid waste, okay.
The transfer station.
Yeah.
And then I also wanted to make you aware of 2 upcoming things. So we just put into the system today for the city council meeting on August 12th, Synergistic, which is the consultant that is doing our municipal energy savings program, will be doing an update to city council for the 2nd year of the program. And they'll actually be going back and giving a good background information, since several of the new city council members were not obviously on city council when the program started. So I recommend either watching or coming to that so you can get some more information. And then we have a tentative date for the final vulnerability assessment presentation. That's tentatively set for the city council work session on September 3rd. So again, hope that you'll be able to tune in for that. And then I did send it to you all earlier, but I just wanted to confirm for our next meeting. I have I have city staff coming to present about this topic, about the medians. So he said, Matt Anderson from Parks and Rec said that he would come and do a presentation about that. And then we also have our planning department confirmed for the artificial turf, which I know you all perhaps may still want to get into tonight. And then potentially two other potential topics. I could possibly present a little bit more on the solar. So we should have a little more progress by then. And Sarah may have some more information about Cooper's Bayou for us by then. But I kind of have a running list here of the things you guys, ask for, and I try to reach out to staff and follow up on that. But we are getting towards the end of that list. It was a pretty big list, and we're getting towards the end, so we'll be, I guess maybe next meeting we can see if we don't have more topics already.
Equally impressive was the list and getting through it. Thank you very much for all
Yes.
that, Cassie.
And that's all for me.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, we'll move on to board members.
Can I?
Oh, yeah, you have a
just-
comment? Sorry, yeah.
The fellow who's going to present regarding the medians at the next meeting, can you go back and communicate to him what we're looking at is not saying like, hey, our neighbors look better than us. What we're saying is that we want to make sure that we get the aesthetics and the quality consistently throughout the city. And that's what we want to be focused on,
Yeah.
just so he doesn't
I had
like.
a long conversation with him on the phone. I can't really remember what it all was because it was very shortly after our last meeting, so it was 2 months ago now. But I know he had a lot, we talked about irrigation and planting, and he had a lot that he was going to address.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's,
Yeah,
he
Matt has a
was
really
set
good
on the
knowledge
part
of-
of comparing it.
He has a really good knowledge of the city and trees, and he was former arborist for the city.
Yeah,
so
is that
he-
the guy who presented to us before about the parks and, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's
he was
assistant
really
parks director.
good.
Yeah, he knows his stuff, yeah. Very well, okay. Any other questions for Cassie and her report? All right, we'll go on to board members to be heard. Jason?
I have another minute, other than say thank you for everyone for presenting and giving us information. I appreciate all the information. I appreciate the discussion with my fellow board members.
Yeah, great discussions today, yeah. Michael?
Yeah, likewise, great discussions. Thanks for all the presentations, and, it's nice to see we're gonna get some things checked off the list in just my second meeting here.
Yeah, yeah, I, thank you very much for that. Yeah, I know we have a lot of writing and letters, but we were kind of slow to the start, and then sometimes that's just how it goes, is everything kind of falls at once, so, thank you, yeah.
Yeah,
Kelly?
I concur. I mean, nothing more to say. I think we're headed in the right direction, and we have a lot of important topics that we're covering.
Yeah, I agree. There's one more before we go, and I know Glenna just briefly left, but I will try to fill the void for a moment here. Fake grass, that's something that Glenna had sent out to us. It's something that I'd done some research on, and it's something that our board has asked for presentation for a long time, even before the current concerns that were brought up and the council's dealing with now, and the city's going back and forth with ordinances or code. Our next meeting is September 17th. I had it written down. Our next meeting's in the middle of September. When does city council hear their presentation on fake grass?
I'm not sure. I just know that I've been in communication with planning. In fact, I went back and looked at my emails. I've been asking for quite some time, and we had set on the September date, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
where that falls with city council.
Yeah, I asked because my understanding is that city council will be getting a presentation on fake grass in September. And we'll get one in September as well, but it seems like it may be too late for our board to have any meaningful impact on whatever presentation we hear and however we feel about this product. We can talk about it at that meeting, at our next meeting during that, or after that presentation, but realistically, if we wanted to take some action, we can, but it won't go anywhere, because if council has heard the presentation, they'll be voting on it, or whether to support or oppose. I'm not really sure how. Or like they did in January, maybe they push it back again for more and greater review. I think and possibly maybe that's what Glenna's concern is as well, is that we want to make sure that we are able to say something, and say something meaningful that is taken to council, and listened to, and whether they, how they want to act is fine on, on the use of the product, but we want to be able to have some input in that. And so if we're able to present something and have something to them at the time they have their presentation, regardless of when we have our presentation, then that'll be, something that they have to at least digest, and a different perspective perhaps than maybe others that they've been given toward using this product. So I don't know if you guys, I did some of my own independent research before I got your email, or the email from Cassie regarding fake grass. And I know historically, this board had made a decision when this issue came up in 2011. I wasn't on the board then, believe it or not, but I covered the city as a reporter at the time and covered this as an issue. And the EAB then was not necessarily supportive of it as a product. I think then, in 13, 14 years ago, there was less known about it in terms of the effects of how it's made, the PFAs that are used to make it, how they don't break down, the forever chemicals, how it's not a recyclable product, so it just fills the landfill. And then the heat islands that are created. I was surprised to hear that 150 degrees is on the low end, and that some of these can be as high as 180 and 200 degrees. And so because of that as an issue with this product, designers of this product have created reservoirs beneath them filled with water to keep them more cool. So now you have a product that initially was designed to conserve water, but now uses more water to make it a product that's more amenable. So I saw that some cities are looking to prohibit it altogether and not use it just because of the negative aspects to it. The Cornhuskers, who have played on AstroTurf since 1970, are phasing it out, and by 2025 will not play on fake grass. So I think there's a number of changes over time where people thought this was a benefit, and kind of whether it was environmentally friendly or environmentally neutral, it was used for those reasons or sold as an environmental product. But in Florida, Florida-friendly landscape principles, there's 9 principles, right? The right plants in the right place, efficiently watering, fertilizing appropriately, mulching responsibly and correctly, attracting wildlife, managing yard pests responsibly, recycling yard waste, reducing stormwater runoff, and protecting the waterfront. And this product doesn't do any of those things. So the question of it being considered because it is non-living, and there are other non-living materials for landscaping that are, regulated, rocks, but animals live, or grubs and worms, they at least create an ecosystem. And so what ultimately, what everything that I kind of came back to when I was reading about this product is that they're really, the environmental benefit to it, reducing the use of water, people still use water to clean it off. So there really isn't a lot of benefits to it, and from what I could find, it's more the idea that it is a low maintenance, low intensity use for people who aren't really taking care of their properties. Maybe they have them, they live here part-time and they don't want to have to deal with the maintenance. And so I don't know that we would want to support the use of a product just because people don't want to maintain living landscape. I don't think it meets environmental needs, and so personally, I don't think it's something that, as a board, that we would support. I think that we would ask council to not support its use throughout the city. I think what they're looking at is trying to figure out how to regulate its use throughout the city, but from everything that I found, the lifespan is 8 5 to 10 years, so you have people who need to replace it. And ultimately, this started back in 2011 because one homeowner put it in their front yard. And I went by, that home doesn't have it in their front yard anymore. So, but since then, a number of other people have, another number of other homes have started using it. The city uses it in other places. The amphitheater has it underneath there. The Long Center, I think, still has some on their playground. There's a few places. They used to have it on the Long Center playground. But,
Don't think they do anymore.
yeah, not anymore. Okay, it's been a little
Just
while
took my
since.
son there a couple months ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's been a little while since I've been on the playground out there. Now, yeah, I guess those are some of my thoughts on it. And I'll open it up, and now that Glenn is back, I guess she can share some more thoughts on
Yeah, I
on
was,
fake grass.
what, are
and,
we in new business? Is that,
board members to be heard.
Oh, okay.
And so
Yeah.
I wanted to bring that item up to fill some space while you were.
oh, because I wanted to talk about the same point. I was
So
gonna
those
make
are
a lot
my
of the same
thoughts.
points.
Those are my thoughts on fake grass. And what is it, 4 or 5 letters that we've already put together? What's one more?
Yeah.
So,
Well, are we going to have I mean, there's an ordinance that's being developed now in planning and development.
Yeah.
In
Yeah, so
response
that's-
to,
that-
and isn't she on our coming, or?
that's what I
Yeah,
asked
she's
Cass.
coming in September, but, and I did talk about this briefly with Tara, who's the city engineer, who I report to. And there is a little confusion on when do things come to the EAB. And we, because to Jared's point, in September, if it's already going to city council and you don't have anything to
Yeah.
them, then it might be too late. So we do have a meeting scheduled early August, with the city's clerk office to kind of clarify how, since, I'm new to this role, it's newly under Public Works again, to clarify kind of the order of how we should do things. But with that being said, this is your chance, I suppose, to do something before it goes to city council.
Yeah, that's the
I
reason
didn't
why.
catch that.
It's our opportunity to do something before it goes to city council. Because
Now,
our
we have to do it
presentation
now.
in September is going to be
Too
either
late?
around, yeah, it's either going to be at the same time or after or just before city council hears this. So their ordinance is, or is it just regulating its use and accepting the regulation of its use?
As far as I know, I haven't gotten anything from planning themselves. All I've been asking is EAB is interested in a presentation of artificial turf, and they've responded saying they're working on it, they're having, a lot of conversations about it, and that they're not ready for the presentation. But I recently am starting to understand that maybe there's a little miscommunication because they're not ready with the ordinance, but perhaps we should have still had a conversation here before the ordinance. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought, they're going to go to the CDB in September, it sounds like. So, yeah, I mean, at that point, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
It's get too late then, it's too late after that.
yeah, I think it goes to council in
And then
September.
October.
Yeah.
But, okay. Yeah,
So,
I've got-
yeah, so the idea is that, we have a brief discussion. I think we have a little bit of an understanding of what the product is, and we've seen its use throughout the city here. There's a number of houses that do have it. You shared some really great information.
Yeah, that was a study done in the spring of last year that I came across, as we were asking about that, about this in relation to the EAB. And I actually know this is for the planning council, the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council did this. And I don't know if they came up with a model ordinance, but this was basically by law students from Stetson Law School, and I actually know one of them, Angela, just really bright, great, law students. And so anyway, and that just gives you, it breaks down, if you had a chance to see it, I mean, it only came out like 2 hours before this meeting. So I thought we were going to have more time. But, yeah, it goes over what all the issues are. The environmental groups are against it because artificial turf is made of petroleum products, all petroleum products. And there's no way, you know, and the disposal of those products when it wears out is just a mammoth. So we could be talking about, it's obviously becoming popular now. It's becoming popular in the like beach areas and areas where, you know, storm runoff can't really be afforded, especially. And I know they're saying that it's permeable, but
Yeah,
it's also a
I-
heat, you know, it's
yeah.
heat producing when we've got climate change coming, and is here, and heat is going to be the #1 killer, probably as a result of climate change. There's so many arguments against it, from even in relation to turf grass, because I mean, turf grass is no panacea, but because of the chemical, you know, in the stormwater, but turf grass at least, you know, breeds of living, breathing plants that clean the air and cool the atmosphere, and this product does not.
So, in some of the research I found that where communities were prohibiting its use, they also offered rebates or incentives to homeowners to plant, and they had lists of different plants that were allowed to kind of promote natural, native, and even some non-native plants that make sense, but, and they would pay $5 a square foot for your yard. And so if you were gonna replant a 500 square foot space, you could get a $2,500 check from, you know, to plant these plants rather than putting in, you know, but that's, I guess that's, you know, further down the line in discussion, but but I bring that up to say that it's good to also provide options, that if you're gonna say, we don't want this, we want this, and we'll also incentivize you to make sure that you use this product rather than this one. So, that's just, again, something I, throughout, you know, kind of the course of reading a lot, saw that as well, and just an idea, you know, that, in green print, we've talked about those green baits or rebates. This may be another opportunity for those. I've talked about that for changing out toilets in the past from the higher capacity to lower, and other things, but there's a number of opportunities that maybe we can help incentivize for neighbors. I know the county has a program like this that wasn't necessarily to keep people from putting in artificial grass, but it was
To encourage native planting.
Yeah.
Is the direction that
Yeah.
makes more sense.
Yeah.
I think for Florida and for environmental purposes. So, and I think Largo is going to be looking at something, well, see, that's just, yeah, right now, a twinkle in their eye about possible, you know, percentage of native plants in all new construction, that kind of thing, I think is where we need to be headed. So I don't know, do we need a letter at this time? Is that what we're thinking? Is that because of the time frame we've
Yeah,
got?
because we don't meet again until middle of September. And the council, if they hear this at the beginning of September or the same, you know, I don't know their schedule, but if they
I
meet
could pull it up, but
September,
I'm not
if they
sure.
meet the first week of September, they'd be meeting the other week after that. Anyway,
So
it
we
would
ask
be,
are we trying to ban artificial turf entirely?
No, I would say, you know, that we would, what, I had the words, they just disappeared, that we would recommend. Discourage.
yeah, discourage its use and
Discourage,
encourage the planting of Florida-friendly
Right.
native plants and,
Right.
yeah.
I mean, it's kind of funny, it's full circle, right? I mean, a few years back in California, they were giving people incentives to put in
Yeah.
the artificial turf.
Really?
Yeah, and now I'm looking at an article here that's dated March 22nd. The state has now signed into law that turf is no longer an acceptable form of drought-tolerant landscaping, and they're encouraging like a 360
Yeah.
view on it, because they're saying that when you run water over it, it's leaching out those chemicals and it's leaching microplastics into the water supply.
Yeah.
And then it says on a day of 98 degrees, that turf is reaching about 200 degrees.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was, I don't know if that's the same article I read, but it is, California recently reversed course, and their legislature said, you can now ban this product as municipalities, and that's what Los Angeles is looking to do. Their city council was looking to ban it as a product, but, that's one place. There are some others that we're looking to, discourage its use or for a number of reasons. And like I said, some of those other places are also offering incentives and pay, up to $5 a square foot to plant, native plants. So,
Is there any way to ask the council to defer this topic to us and ask for our recommendation?
I don't think so. They saw this in January, and at that time, they pushed it back to staff to redevelop, and we'd asked even back before January to hear about this as an issue, and have been sort of bypassed, so.
So our next meeting is September 18th, and
Oh, wow.
city council has 2 meetings in September. I'm not sure if it's going to either of them, or if it's going to CBD in September and then going to council, but there's a meeting on September 3rd and September 16th. Actually, there's another one on September 30th.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah,
not
so
sure.
my understanding is that this was gonna go to a number of different boards before city council in September. CDB's one of them, DRC's another, and the Neighborhood Coalition's another one. And that's in August. So
August,
there's a
yeah.
number of other presentations on this before we even get a presentation. And it sounds like whenever we get a presentation, it's gonna be close to whenever council is gonna be making a decision. So, that's why I thought, and I'm glad that you brought it up as well, Glenna, that this was something that we should take an action on, because we won't be able to until September 18th, when we do have a presentation on it, but by then, either council heard about it that week, the week before, or the 1 week after, and by then, it reminds me of when we had the landings presentation before
Yeah.
that went to vote, and it was basically 2 nights before it went to
It was the
referendum, so.
12th hour we got.
What's our input mean,
Yeah.
but,
Well, my guess is the ordinances, and I will, and I really don't, I haven't seen, it just, there's not, this is like a new trend, so, I don't know that there's a lot, that's on it. There's a lot of research on it, certainly, because it's been around for a long time, but in terms of it's becoming an issue for for Clearwater, but it seems like it's possible that the ordinance will have have like just a percentage that's allowed for how much,
Right.
put limits on the turf grass, how many, what percentage of your landscape could have it, and hopefully, it would limit like the, how close you can have it to water,
yeah.
I mean, that's another, there are some recommendations down that line. But I think that we could be preemptive and be relatively safe by just discouraging
Right.
the allowance of turf, of artificial turf.
Yeah, because I think what they're looking at is regulating its use.
Exactly.
And not necessarily saying, banning it
Banning
as a
it,
product.
no.
So what happened in 2011, there was one person who had it, the council asked for, again, some sort of regulations on this, and instead of passing regulations at the time, the city council opted to grandfather in the one house with the one use and say, we don't want to use this throughout the city, and effectively discouraged or banned its use then. But because it was still allowed through code, like development code, the definition of it allowed for people to just put this in their yards, and that's where we have since 2011 handfuls of homeowners who have kind of put this in, because there isn't anything that specifically says we can't use this, but there isn't anything that says you can either, and because it fits over, like you said, permeable, or depending on the product used, it's a permeable surface, and certain percentages of it are acceptable. And so that's what they're trying to kind of codify, I believe, is what percentages are acceptable.
And where.
And then
Hopefully.
also the standards of use, because if you look around and see, some of them look like the carpet at a mini golf course, and some of them look like they spent a lot more money than that on them. So, and I think that's what they're trying to reach with this regulation, is some type of consistency, and then also some way of, again, regulating it and saying you have to have permits for it. And that's what I am struggling to figure out, is where staff is going to be able to manage permits for it, inspections of it, and then go back after a number of years and make sure that this product was removed, and then removed properly and installed properly. And
So, can we give them the information that shows how dangerous it is, right?
Mhm.
And how It's not good for our ecosystem. It's leaching chemicals into our water supplies. We're talking microplastics, right? It's a huge problem. And because of that, it's our suggestion to use it virtually as little as possible.
Yeah, to discourage its use
Yeah.
and
Discourage
encourage
its
the
use
use of.
completely, and
Maybe we could have, the permit department hand out a one-page information sheet on the pros and cons of it or something to get the consumers to look at it. Because, I think there's a lot of false information out there. I had no idea. I know my son at one time looked at being a distributor of this like several years ago because he's a landscaping company in LA, and it was highly encouraged, right? And so I think there's just so much false information. Initially you think, oh, this is really good. It's drought tolerant. I'm saving water,
Good for the
all of
environment,
these
that's the
things,
way it's being
right?
touted.
Yeah.
And so we need to get the correct data out there so that the consumer can make an informed choice. There's some people where the environment isn't a high priority for them, unfortunately.
Right.
They're the ones who are probably gonna opt out for the low maintenance, whatever's easy for them. But at least if we give them the data and they make an informed decision, it's on them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but we've got this ordinance to deal with right now. But yeah, a public
That's right.
education program would be awesome.
Okay, so I think that it sounds like we want to send a letter to council, letting them know that because of the negative environmental impacts, the Environmental Advisory Board discourages the use of fake grass and encourages the use of native Florida-friendly landscaping. Something
I would
along
make
those
that
lines, and then we
motion.
can just kind of
Yeah.
expound a little bit on the environmental impacts and things
exactly,
like that.
and that's perfect.
Okay, so I'd be looking for.
I'll move that.
Motion, a second.
Second?
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so then I can draft that as well and send it to Cassie and send it out to everybody else, and we can have that for city council for their presentation on this in September, right?
Yeah, so we're gonna prioritize that one.
Yes, we will.
Can we,
you.
can you notify us of when you find out what date the city council's gonna be giving the presentation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Because
was
we
just
also-
looking, I was included on some emails on it, I just looked through and I don't see a date for it.
Mm-hmm.
It just says that it's going to the CBD and the RNC, I don't know the acronyms now.
The RNC?
Been at work for 12 hours now, so.
CNC.
Whatever
We've got a
they
date
are.
for the CNC.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
CBB.
I am not sure that it is going to city council in September, so we may have time in September, but it doesn't hurt to draft the letter now. I can follow up with Gina and Jamie and see what the timeline is. And then we can, I think the letter is gonna be the same before or after their presentation.
I would
Yeah.
agree.
Well, it also, because if we know the date, maybe one of us could also show up to the meeting and make a comment and say, hey, I'm an EAB member and, we're looking into this, we don't have it,
We've made recommendations. I hope you take that into consideration.
Yeah, yeah, we'll keep an eye on the agendas and make sure that in any of these items, and this one particularly come up, we'll make sure. I know I usually attend whenever we have
Yeah, me too.
things come up, anything EAB related, I try to attend when new.
Do you identify yourself as a member of the EAB when you are like a member
If I
of
come
a
speak
public?
and it's something toward EAB, I say that I'm chairman of the Environmental Advisory Board and speak. Other times I just sit in the audience, like when we had some of our new members approved by council, I just go to see how that goes and if there's any discussion, but it's usually on work sessions. So. But I always like to go because if the new members are there, I can say hey, so. But, all right, so that's great. Thank you very much. The only other thing I'm going to mention, and really briefly, is it's No Plastics Month. July's No
Yeah, we
Plastics
did
Month.
a campaign.
Yeah, no, I saw that on our website, and I just wanted to share that with anyone who's still watching now. Make sure to sign up. It's on My Clearwater /sustainability, no plastics July. You can just look up No Plastics July in
Yeah,
Clearwater.
I'm not sure
But,
the exact URL is, but we did a social media post. I think there's gonna be 2 more social media posts. We put it in our newsletter, we put it in the city newsletter, and we made a website for it, so.
That's great. The only thing I'll suggest, and I'm gonna say this because it was from our board, is Resolution 18-08, the single-use plastics, ocean-friendly resolution. Our board was instrumental in putting that together. We heard from the community. We wrote resolution, wrote a letter, went to council and got it supported, and here we are now, celebrating no plastics in July, again and again.
So maybe because we have a new communications, public information coordinator.
Okay,
So maybe I'll tell her to highlight that in the remaining two social
weeks?
media posts.
sure, that's great. But I just wanted to share that because we did a lot of work today, and want to make sure that everybody knows that we've been effective in the past, and we can continue to be effective as a board moving forward. So with that, thank you all, and we're adjourned.